Hello, my friend. Come in. Come in and settle. You've made it here, and that matters. Whatever the day asked of you, whatever it took, whatever it left behind, that's all behind you now. The door is closed. The world outside is doing what the world always does, rushing and clattering and demanding, but none of that has anything to do with you anymore. Not tonight. Not right now. Right now, there is only this. Your body, wherever it rests, is exactly where it should be. Feel the surface beneath you, the give of it, the support of it, the way it holds you without asking anything in return. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Let the muscles around your eyes, those small tired muscles that have been working all day without a word of thanks, let them soften now, just slightly, just enough. Breathe in and breathe out. There's no hurry here. There is absolutely nowhere you need to be. I'm Alan, and tonight I want to take you somewhere beautiful, somewhere candlelit and quiet and deeply, deeply calm. I want to take you back a long way back to a world that moved more slowly than ours. A world where evenings were long and unhurried, where the end of the day was treated as something almost sacred, where a woman could close her bedroom door and spend an hour, maybe two, in the gentle company of herself. We're going to the 1880s tonight. Victorian England. A modest townhouse somewhere in a grey and cobblestone city, Bristol perhaps, or the quieter edges of Manchester where the gaslights have just been lit along the street outside and the last of the evening's carts are making their way home through the mist. It is a world of wool and candlelight, of writing desks and ceramic wash basins, of hairpins and leather-bound diaries and the smell of rosewater. And in that world, in an upstairs bedroom at the end of a long and ordinary day, a woman is about to begin something beautiful. Her name we will not know. She is every woman and no particular woman. She is the seamstress's daughter who married a modest clerk. She is the governess who finally has a room of her own. She is the young wife, the thoughtful sister, the quietly observant soul who moves through her days with a kind of careful attention that history rarely bothers to record. She does not appear in any newspaper. She will not give a speech or sign a treaty or change the course of anything that historians will notice. But she is, I think, one of the most interesting people we could possibly spend an evening with, because what she is about to do, this slow, intimate, deeply human ritual of ending the day, is something that connects her to you across more than 140 years. The shedding of the day's weight, the gentle return to the self, the quiet miracle of lying down at night and letting everything go. She knows how to do this beautifully. And tonight, very slowly, we are going to watch her. You are safe here, my friend, completely safe. Whatever is waiting for you in the morning can wait a little longer. The world is patient. It will all be there. But right now, in this warm and quiet space between waking and sleep, there is only a candlelit bedroom in the 1880s, and a woman climbing her stairs, and the whole long, lovely evening stretching out ahead of her like a slow river moving toward rest. Let your breathing slow. Let your thoughts grow softer at the edges. Picture, if you like, the quality of evening light in that time. There are no electric bulbs, yet not in this house, not in this neighbourhood. The light comes from candles and from the oil lamp on the bedside table, and it is warm and amber, and it moves slightly, breathing with the draughts that find their way through the old window frames. Everything it touches looks golden. Everything it touches looks like something worth staying close to. The room smells of beeswax and lavender, and the faint coal smoke that drifts from the fireplace in the corner, where a small fire has been laid and lit against the autumn chill. The floorboards are covered by a rug worn soft by years of feet, and the bed against the far wall is already turned down, the white cotton sheets cool and waiting. This is her room, and her evening is just beginning. Let yourself sink a little deeper now. Let your body grow heavy and warm. We are going to take this very, very slowly. There is no rush. There is only the candle, and the quiet, and her. To understand how beautiful her evening is, we need to understand what she is stepping away from. The 1880s are a remarkable time to be alive, and also, in certain ways, an exhausting one. England in this decade is a country mid-transformation caught between the old world and something faster, louder, more demanding. The railways have stitched the country together. The newspapers arrive daily, thick with opinion and anxiety. The cities are growing at a pace that nobody quite knows how to manage. Streets pushing outward into what were once fields, terraced houses rising row upon row like sentences that never quite find their full stop, and the social expectations pressing down on a woman of respectable standing quietly, constantly, without ever being spoken aloud, are considerable. From the moment she woke this morning, she has been composed, she has been correct. Her hair has been pinned just so, her posture held just right, her expressions carefully moderated to reflect the balance of warmth and restraint that her world requires. In public, even in the semi-public spaces of her own drawing room, she is a version of herself that has been lightly edited, tidied, presented. This is not cruelty. This is simply the water she swims in. Victorian domestic life, for a woman of her station, is governed by 1,000 small rules that nobody needs to write down because everyone already knows them. How to pour tea, when to speak and when to let silence do the work, how much feeling to show, and how much to fold neatly away. Her days are shaped by duty, by propriety, by the steady management of a household and the careful navigation of relationships. She does it all gracefully. She does it all without complaint. But now the supper dishes have been cleared. The drawing-room fire is burning low. The last of the evening's obligations have been gently fulfilled. The house has grown quieter around her, the way houses do when the day is truly finished, settling into itself with soft creaks and sighs. And she has excused herself. She has taken her candle from the mantelpiece, that small brass holder worn smooth from years of evening hands, and she has moved toward the stairs. Behind her, the muffled sounds of the house continue. Perhaps the low voice of her husband reading, perhaps the distant clatter of the kitchen girl finishing up, perhaps only the tick of the long case clock in the hallway marking the hour. Ahead of her, the stairs, the landing, the closed door of her bedroom. Ahead of her, herself. The city outside is already beginning its own nightly transformation. The street vendors have packed away their carts. The last of the office clerks have hurried home. The gaslights stand at their posts along the pavement, burning quietly in the damp autumn air, throwing circles of amber light onto the wet cobblestones below. Somewhere, a horse shifts in a stable. Somewhere, a church bell begins to count the hour. It is 9:30. The evening is hers. She lifts her candle a little higher, sets her foot on the first step, and begins to climb. And so she begins. One foot, then the other, the stairs rising gently before her in the amber wash of her candle's flame. There are 14 steps in this staircase. She has climbed them thousands of times. She knows each one by heart, not the way you know something you've memorized, but the way your body knows something it has absorbed so completely that it no longer needs to think. Her foot finds each step the way a word finds its place in a sentence you've said 100 times before, naturally, without hesitation, with a kind of quiet, wordless belonging. The first step is the widest. It always gives a little more than you expect. The third step is the one that speaks. Every house has a step like this, a step that has something to say, that has absorbed years of footfall and decided to comment on it. In this house, it is the third step, and it makes a sound somewhere between a sigh and a question when she presses her weight onto it. A low, woody creak that moves up through the sole of her boot and into her ankle and disappears. It is a sound she has heard every night of her married life in this house, and it is, in its own small way, one of the sounds that means home. She pauses, not because the creak has surprised her, it never surprises her anymore, but because pausing has become part of the ritual. A brief stillness on the third step, just long enough to let the sound finish, just long enough to feel the shift happening inside her. The shift from the downstairs self, the composed, presented drawing room self, to the person she is becoming with every step upward. She holds her candle slightly ahead of her, and the flame bends very gently in the draught from the hallway below. It recovers, it straightens, it burns on. The walls of the staircase are papered in a small repeating pattern, dark green leaves on a cream ground, the paper slightly yellowed near the ceiling where the years have touched it. In the candlelight, The pattern seems almost to breathe. The leaves seem to lean toward the warmth, the way real leaves lean toward sunlight. She notices this every night. It pleases her every time. This small, reliable illusion. The banister is beneath her free hand, and she trails her fingers along it as she climbs. The wood is smooth from years of hands, her hands, yes, but also the hands of whoever lived in this house before her, and perhaps the hands of whoever built it, testing the fit and finish with a satisfied palm before the paint went on. Old wood holds warmth differently than new wood. It holds it the way a beloved coat holds warmth, not just the heat of the room, but something older, something accumulated. Her fingers move along it slowly, not gripping, just touching, just resting. You're safe, my friend, right here, right now, warm and still and perfectly held. Let her climb her stairs while you sink a little deeper. There is nothing pressing, nothing urgent, just the creak of old wood and the bend of a candle flame and the quiet ascent of one woman toward her rest. She passes the small framed print on the landing wall, a landscape she has lived with so long that she rarely sees it anymore. And yet tonight, as on many nights, the candlelight catches it at an angle that makes it briefly new. A hillside, some sheep, a sky that someone once thought worth painting. She glances at it with the unhurried attention of someone who has all the time in the world, and something in her chest does the small, quiet thing it always does when beauty catches her unprepared. She carries on. There is a kind of meditation available on a familiar staircase, if you are willing to receive it, the repetition of steps, the slight labour of the climb. 2. The way your breathing adjusts, not much, just slightly to accommodate the movement. Victorian doctors, interestingly enough, often wrote about the benefits of this small nightly exertion. The staircase as a gentle transition between the metabolic demands of the day and the deeper stillness of sleep. The body asked to do one last small useful thing before it is permitted to lie down. She is almost at the top now. She can feel the shift in temperature. The landing is slightly warmer than the hallway below, the heat from the day's fires having risen and gathered here beneath the roof. The air smells different too, up here. Less coal, more what? Lavender, from the small sachet she keeps on the linen shelf. Beeswax from the candles. Something that might be called the smell of privacy. The particular atmospheric quality of a space that belongs, in the deepest sense, to one person. Her foot finds the top step. She stops. She is on the landing now, and the door to her bedroom is directly ahead, 6 feet of worn floorboard separating her from it. The door itself slightly ajar, a thin line of amber light along its edge where the lamp inside has been turned down low by the girl earlier in the evening. The light from within seems almost to beckon, like a welcome, like something warm that has been waiting patiently for her return. And here, right here on this landing, in this moment between the stairs and the door, something interesting happens inside her. She breathes, not the careful, measured breathing of the drawing room, not the held-in, corseted, socially aware breathing of public life. She breathes the way you breathe when no one is watching, the way you breathe when the last obligation has been discharged and the next obligation hasn't started yet, and there is this small, extraordinary gap of time that belongs to nobody but you. Her shoulders move, her chest lifts, her chin tilts up just slightly, the way a face tilts toward rain or toward sun, or toward any small gift offered freely. I find this quietly extraordinary, this moment, this pause on the landing. History is very good at recording the grand gestures, the speeches, the discoveries, the moments of consequence. It is much less interested in the pause on the landing, the held breath on the threshold, the private face, and yet I more than suspect that it is in moments like this one that something essential about being human is most clearly visible. The need for a self that belongs only to yourself. The hunger for the space where no performance is required. She has been performing gently all day, and now, at last, she is about to stop. She crosses the 6 feet of landing. Her hand finds the door. The brass door handle is cool against her palm, much cooler than the banister was, the metal unwilling to hold warmth the way wood does. She presses down on the handle with the particular practiced pressure of someone who knows exactly how much force this door requires. Not too much, not too little, the old mechanism having its own specific language that she has learned to speak fluently. The door swings open, and her room comes to meet her. The lamplight inside is low and amber, and it fills the room the way honey fills a jar, slowly, completely, warmly. The small fire in the grate has burned down to a gentle glow, orange and gold, the coals shifting occasionally with a soft sound like a sleeping breath. The curtains are drawn heavy wool curtains in a deep burgundy, and they move very slightly at the bottom where the draught finds its way beneath the window frame, a slow rhythmic motion like the breathing of the room itself. The bed is against the far wall, already turned down, the white cotton of the sheet catching the lamplight and holding it. The pillows are full and cool looking. The coverlet, a patchwork of dark jewel tones that she has had since before she was married, is folded back at just the right angle. She steps inside. She pulls the door closed behind her with a soft final click, and the room receives her. The city outside exists, she can hear it, faintly, through the glass and the wool of the curtains, a low and distant murmur of late horses and last footsteps and the occasional call of a voice doing something necessary in the dark. But it is very far away. It is barely real. It is a rumour of the world she has left behind for tonight, and it is already beginning to dissolve at the edges. She sets her candle on the dressing table. The flame settles. She looks at her reflection for just a moment, not with vanity, not with criticism, but with the simple, curious attention of someone checking in. She looks at herself the way she might look at a friend she hasn't seen all day, with recognition, with a kind of quiet affection. There you are. What stays with me, thinking about this moment, is the ordinariness of it. Here is a woman who will leave no trace in any history book, and yet here she is, on an autumn evening in the 1880s, stepping into her own room and closing the door on the world, and what she is doing is exactly what you are doing right now, in your own way, stepping out of the day, closing the door, letting the outside world become a murmur. She is, in this way, very close to you. She takes a breath, and then she moves toward the window. Before she begins the long, unhurried work of undressing, she goes to the window. She always goes to the window first. It is a habit she has had since girlhood, this need to look out before looking in, to account for the world beyond the glass before turning her attention to the world within the room. Her mother did it too, she remembers. Every evening, before the curtains were drawn, her mother would stand at the upstairs window of their smaller, older house and look out at the street for a long, quiet moment, never speaking, never explaining, just looking, as if the act of witnessing the world's transition from day to night was something that needed to be done properly, something that deserved a witness. She learned this from watching her mother. She has never been able to name exactly what it is she is doing when she does it, but she does it faithfully every night, and something in her feels the absence of it on the rare occasions when she doesn't. She crosses to the window now, her candle left behind on the dressing table, the room's low lamplight enough to move by. She reaches the curtains and parts them with both hands just slightly, just enough to create a gap she can stand in, the heavy burgundy wool falling closed again behind her shoulders, so that she is briefly cocooned between the fabric and the glass, in a small, private world that is neither fully inside nor fully outside. The window is cold against her nose when she leans close. The glass has that particular quality that old single-pane windows have, not quite transparent, not quite opaque, slightly wavy in the way of glass made by hand, so that the street below is rendered in gentle soft focus, as if the whole scene has been brushed over lightly with the most delicate of watercolour washes. And what a scene it is! The street below is wet. A light autumn rain must have fallen while they were at supper, because the cobblestones shine with reflected gaslight, each stone its own small dark mirror, holding its own small replica of the orange flame burning in the lamp-post at the corner. The pavement is slick and gleaming. The puddles in the dips between the stones are perfectly still, the rain having stopped now, and in each puddle there is a tiny wobbling duplicate of the sky, grey and deep, and infinite in miniature. She finds this beautiful. She finds this unspeakably beautiful, and she always has. The street is quiet at this hour, but not empty. The 1880s city never goes entirely silent until well past midnight. There is always something, always some last thread of the day's business being completed in the dark. A dray horse pulls a brewery cart slowly along the far end of the street, its hooves striking the wet cobblestones with a sound that travels cleanly through the cold air, a hollow, rhythmic clop, clop, clop that she can feel as much as hear, a sound that has a weight to it, a steadiness, like a slow and patient heartbeat. The drayman sits high on his seat, collar turned up against the chill, his hat pulled low. He doesn't look up. He is in his own world entirely, navigating the familiar route with the particular competent blankness of someone who has done this so many times that his body does it alone. The horse knows the way. The man knows the cart. The night knows them both. She watches them pass. You're warm and perfectly comfortable, my friend. The night outside is cold and damp and old, and you are here, in your own warmth, listening. Let the street below drift past like something seen through the window of a train, real and vivid and quietly moving, but not yours to manage, just yours to witness. In the 1880s, the gaslight was still the great technological wonder of the urban street. Its installation in British cities had been rolling forward for decades by this point, and though electric street lighting was beginning to appear in a few forward-thinking municipalities, most neighbourhoods like hers were still lit by gas. The lamplighter had come earlier in the evening. She had heard the soft pop and flare from downstairs as he worked his way along the row, his long pole reaching up to each lamp in turn, the street blooming into amber segments behind him like a slow, warm tide coming in. Now those lamps burn steadily. Each one stands in its circle of light like a small, faithful guardian. The light falls straight down through the still air, pooling on the cobblestones, illuminating small, perfect circles of wet stone, and the edges of things, the iron railing of the house across the street, the corner of a doorstep, the toe of a woman's boot as she hurries past below. There is a woman hurrying past. She notices her, a figure in a dark coat, a basket over one arm, moving quickly along the opposite pavement, with the particular purposeful stride of someone who is late and knows it and is not pleased about it. Her boots are quick on the wet stones. Her breath makes small ghost puffs in the cold air. She turns the corner and is gone, and she, watching from behind the glass, feels a soft, uncomplicated sympathy. She knows that stride. She has been that stride. The hurrying woman in the dark with something still to do before she can rest. The managed urgency of the end of a long day. She sends the hurrying woman a small private wish. Rest soon, she thinks. Rest soon and rest well. It is one of the quiet habits of her inner life, this sending of small wishes to strangers. She has never told anyone about it. It costs nothing. It changes nothing, probably, but it pleases her. This feeling of invisible connection, this sense that she and the hurrying woman and the drayman and everyone behind every lit window in every house on every street in this city are all, in their various ways, moving toward the same destination tonight. Moving toward rest. Moving toward the laying down of the day. Across the street, a window is lit on the second floor of the house opposite the yellow glow of a lamp behind thin curtains. A silhouette passing briefly, a hand reaching up to draw the curtains closed. A bedroom window. Someone else beginning their own evening, their own undressing, their own return to the private self. She watches the curtains close and feels, again, that thread of quiet kinship. We are all doing this, she thinks. All of us, all over this city, all over this country, all the way across the world. Every night, without ceremony or announcement, millions of people are climbing their stairs and closing their doors and beginning the slow work of coming home to themselves. It is, she thinks, one of the most human things there is. The street is emptier now. Even in the few minutes she has stood here, the last of the evening's foot traffic has thinned. A boy crosses at the far end running, because boys always run, because the night is cold and the run feels good and there is somewhere warm waiting. A cat appears from beneath a set of front steps and sits precisely in the centre of the pool of light beneath the nearest gas lamp, as if it has chosen this stage deliberately, as if it is aware of the effect. It sits very straight, It looks up and down the street with the serene authority of something that owns the night. She smiles. She smiles the way you smile when you are alone and something pleases you. And there is no social component to the smile whatsoever. It is just a pure, uncomplicated physical expression of a feeling rising to her face without permission or management. The cat, after a suitably theatrical pause, decides that the street is satisfactory and moves on. She watches it go. What moves me most about this moment, this woman at her window, watching the nighttime street, is that it is not a particularly Victorian moment. It is a human moment. It is a moment that belongs to no century in particular. The impulse to stand at a window at the end of the day and watch the world grow quiet, to bear gentle witness to the city's settling, is as old as windows themselves, as old as cities, as old as the need for a moment between the day and the night in which you are neither fully engaged with the world nor fully withdrawn from it. She is, in this breath between curtains, in both places at once. She belongs, for just this moment, to neither the drawing room nor the bed. She is simply here, watching, breathing, present. The cold from the glass has moved through her cheeks now, a pleasant, clarifying cold, the kind of cold that wakes something up rather than shutting something down. Her breath has been misting faintly against the glass, leaving small temporary clouds that appear and dissolve in the rhythm of her breathing. She notices this. She watches one small cloud of breath bloom on the glass and then pull back and then bloom again. She breathes out a little more deliberately, just to make the cloud larger, just to see. It blooms. It holds for a moment. It fades. She could stay here longer. Part of her always wants to. But the room behind her is warm, and the fire is glowing, and the lamp is burning low and patient on the bedside table, and there is the whole lovely ritual of the evening still ahead of her. The unpinning, the unlacing, the washing, the brushing, all of it waiting with the unhurried patience of things that are certain to happen. She lets the curtains fall closed. The street vanishes. The room surrounds her again, the warmth of it, the amber of it, the small intimate fire sounds from the grate. She stands for a moment with her hands still holding the fabric of the curtains, feeling the transition from out there to in here, from the city to herself, from the world to the room. She releases the curtains. She turns, and she reaches up, slowly with both hands, toward her hair. Her arms rise slowly, both of them, lifting together, elbows out, hands finding their way toward the back of her head with the practiced ease of a gesture performed 10,000 times. It is, in its own quiet way, one of the most characteristic movements of a Victorian woman's evening, this reaching up, this beginning of the undoing, and she does it with the particular unhurried grace of someone who knows exactly what comes next, and is in no hurry to rush past any of it. There is no mirror involved yet. She doesn't need one for this part. Her fingers know the terrain of her own head the way a cartographer knows a map. They have drawn themselves every pin, every coil, every tucked and twisted section located exactly where she left it this morning, patient and precise and waiting. She finds the first pin. It is at the back of her head, near the nape of her neck, a long, dark hairpin, one of perhaps 30 she put in this morning, while standing before this same mirror, in the grey early light, assembling the version of herself that would go downstairs and face the day. Her fingers close around its head a small, cool oval of metal, and she draws it out slowly. Slowly, the pin comes free with the faintest whisper of resistance, the hair releasing it reluctantly, the way fabric releases a thread that has been pulled slightly too tight. She holds it between her fingers for a moment, this small, ordinary thing, and then she sets it on the dressing table with a soft, precise tap of metal on wood. Tink! Such a small sound. Such a satisfying one. She finds the second pin. This one is slightly deeper, set at an angle, anchoring the coil at the side of her head that has held all day without shifting. She works it free with 2 fingers, gently rotating it as she draws it out, the hair sighing around it as it goes. Tink! The third pin is easier. It has been working loose since afternoon. She noticed it during supper. felt it shifting incrementally with each movement of her head, the slow and inevitable declaration of independence that long hairpins make toward the end of a long day. She draws it out almost without effort, and it comes free with a little rush, a small cascade of loosened hair following it down the back of her neck, like the first rivulet of water that follows when a dam is gently opened. She pauses. She lets herself feel that. The loosening. The beginning of the release. You're here with me, my friend, aren't you? Warm and still and drifting. Let her fingers move through that Victorian hair while your own thoughts grow lighter. Let each pin she draws out take something with it. Some small remaining weight of the day. Some last thread of tension you've been holding without knowing. Let it go, the way her hair goes, pin by pin, slowly and completely. In the 1880s, a woman's hair was, in the most literal sense, her crowning glory. Victorian culture had elevated hair to something approaching the sacred. Its length, its management, its presentation were bound up with ideas about femininity, respectability, and moral character in ways that seem extraordinary to us now, but were simply the water of that world. A woman's hair, worn down, was a thing of profound intimacy seen only by herself, by her lady's maid if she had one, by her husband, by her most trusted female companions. To see a respectable Victorian woman with her hair down was to see something private, something true. She has a great deal of hair. It is dark and heavy, and it reaches, when fully released, to the middle of her back. She is not unaware that it is beautiful. She is not proud in the way that invites judgment, but she is quietly, privately grateful. Hair like this is a kind of inheritance, passed down without ceremony from her mother and her mother's mother. This particular darkness and weight and wave. The fourth pin, the fifth, each one drawn out with the same slow, deliberate care. Each one set on the dressing table with that small, precise sound that is becoming, in its repetition, almost musical. Tink, tink. With each pin removed, the elaborate architecture of her daytime hair is slowly deconstructed. The coils loosen, the waves remember themselves. The sections that have been pinned against the natural inclination of the hair begin to relax, to drift back toward their preferred shapes, the hair's own memory reasserting itself gently over the imposed order of the morning's arrangement. She works her way around her head methodically, back first, then the right side, then the left, and as she does, she can feel the weight of her hair beginning to shift, to redistribute, the tightness at her scalp easing incrementally with each pin removed. The scalp, she has always thought, holds the day differently than any other part of the body. The tension there is specific, not the broad ache of tired shoulders or the dull weight of tired feet, but something more precise, more concentrated. The tightness of hair that has been pinned and coiled and disciplined for 12 hours. The sixth pin. The seventh. The eighth. Tink, tink, tink. The small line of pins on the dressing table is growing. She will count them before she sleeps, not from compulsion but from the comfortable habit of accounting. The satisfying confirmation that what went in has all come out, that nothing has been left behind to make the night uncomfortable. This is the kind of small domestic precision that governs so much of a Victorian woman's inner life. Not grand organisation, but the quiet, faithful management of small things. 9, 10. There is a hairnet to remove as well, a fine, almost invisible thing of silk, worn over the back arrangement to keep it smooth through the afternoon and evening. Her fingers find its edge and she draws it off carefully, the silk whispering across her hair as it comes, and this removal of the net produces the first significant cascade. A full section of her back hair loosens and falls, dropping against her neck and shoulders in a dark wave, the hair warm from being held close all day. She goes still. She lets it happen. Let the weight of it fall, she thinks, or maybe feels the thought and the feeling so continuous in her that sometimes she cannot tell them apart. Let the weight of it fall and take the day with it. The last few pins come out quickly, 11, 12, 13, and then she runs both hands into her hair from the base of her neck upward, fingers spreading, and she feels the remaining arrangement simply release, all at once, the last of the coils and pins giving way simultaneously, and her hair comes down. All of it. All at once, it falls across her shoulders and down her back in a long, dark living curtain, the wave of it rippling slightly as it settles, and the feeling of this is one of those physical experiences that occupies a category entirely its own, pure release. Total, immediate, unambiguous relief. The scalp sighing, the neck lengthening slightly, the head floating just fractionally higher as the tension that was pinning it forward all day simply ceases. She closes her eyes, just for a moment, just to feel it. I think this is what moves me the most about this particular moment, that across more than 140 years, this feeling has not changed at all, not 1 degree. The relief of letting the hair down at the end of the day, the specific, particular, almost indescribable luxury of it, is exactly the same as it was in 1885. It was the same before that. It will be the same long after us. Some physical pleasures are so fundamental, so deeply wired into the body's language, that no amount of time or change can alter them. They simply persist. They wait. Every evening, they are there. She stands with her eyes closed and her hair down for a long, unhurried moment, both hands still buried in it, fingers spread, and she breathes. In and out. The fire makes a soft sound in the grate. A coal settles. The lamp on the bedside table burns on without comment. Outside, through the heavy curtains, the city is almost fully quiet now, its night sounds reduced to the occasional distant clatter of something too far away to identify a sound without a source, the ambient murmur of a sleeping city still performing the last of its nightly business. She opens her eyes. She looks at herself in the dressing table, mirror her reflection, amber, and softened in the lamplight, her hair loose around her face and shoulders, and she looks, she thinks, rather more like herself. The daytime face, the careful, composed, perfectly managed daytime face is still there, but it is looser now. The edges of it have softened. Something behind the eyes is more visible. She brings her hands forward and draws her hair over one shoulder, a great dark rope of it, heavy and warm, and holds it there for a moment, feeling its weight in her palm. Then she begins to separate it, gently, into 3 sections, preparing it for the loose plait she will sleep in, not the tight, precise plaiting of the morning braid, but the gentle, loose gathering of hair being asked simply to stay together while she sleeps, to keep itself from tangling in the night. But not yet. Not quite yet. First there is the brushing. The hairbrush is on the dressing table, a beautiful object, one of her few genuine vanities, with a back of carved tortoiseshell and bristles that are soft enough not to pull and firm enough to work. She reaches for it with one hand, feeling the familiar weight and shape of it settle into her palm, and she draws it through her loose hair once gently, from root to tip, and the hair moves beneath it like dark water. She will do this properly in a moment. 100 strokes. She always does 100, but for now she simply draws the brush through once, slowly, and feels the hair smooth beneath it, and the feeling is there is no other word delicious. Rest now, my dear friend. You're doing so beautifully. You're warm and safe, and there is nothing to do and nowhere to be. Just breathe, just drift. Just let the image of her lamplight and dark hair and the whisper of a brush carry you somewhere quieter, somewhere deeper. The evening is long and slow and gentle, and it is all for you. She sets the brush down. She picks up the last of the pins from her hair. There is always one she misses, tucked in somewhere unexpected, found only when the brush catches on it, and she adds it to the small row on the dressing table. She counts them, 14 pins that have held her day together. She looks at the little row of them, these small, dark, faithful objects, and she feels something she couldn't quite name if she tried. Something between affection and acknowledgement, the way you might feel toward any small, reliable thing that asks nothing of you and gives everything it has. She turns back to the mirror. Her hair is loose and dark and full around her shoulders, and the woman looking back at her is just beginning to look like someone at rest. She picks up the brush again. She settles her shoulders, and she is just about to begin counting when her hands move instead to the back of her dress, reaching for something else first, something that has been asking for her attention, with increasing insistence, for the better part of the last hour. The corset. It is time. She reaches behind her, both arms bending back, elbows lifting, fingers finding the familiar territory of her own back with the particular practiced ease of a woman who has been lacing and unlacing herself largely unaided for years. There is no lady's maid in this household. There is the kitchen girl, who comes in daily and manages the heavy work, but the intimate business of dressing and undressing has always been her own. She learned early how to reach the buttons, the hooks, the laces. She learned early how to be sufficient to herself in this small daily way, and she has never minded it. There is something she has always quietly preferred about this solitary management of her own clothing, this privacy of the beginning and the ending of the day, the dressing and undressing as acts that belong entirely to herself, witnessed by no one, hurried by no one, done at exactly the pace she chooses. She works the buttons at the back of her bodice first. There are 12 of them, small fabric-covered buttons that run from the nape of her neck to the waist, and she undoes them from the bottom upward, her fingers moving with the automatic confidence of long practice, each button slipping free of its loop with a tiny soft resistance, and then releasing the fabric parting behind her in a slow, steady opening. 1, 2, 3. The bodice loosens around her rib cage as the buttons give way, the wool relaxing its hold, and she can feel even this preliminary loosening, even this outer layer releasing as a small, perceptible relief. The day has been long. The clothing has been correct and proper and has done its job without complaint, and now it is being thanked for its service and gently stood down. 4, 5, 6. She rolls her shoulders slightly as the upper buttons come free, feeling the fabric fall away from the back of her neck, the air of the room touching the skin there cool and immediate and pleasant. The back of the neck is one of those places the body keeps particularly carefully, she has always thought. Warm, yes, but also somehow vulnerable, somehow significant. The feeling of cool air on the back of the neck, after a day of wool and pinned hair and the weight of a collar, is its own small category of relief. 7, 8. She works the bodice off her shoulders and arms, a slight careful choreography of elbows and wrists, and lays it over the back of the chair by the dressing table. It is a good bodice, a sensible one. The wool, a deep plum that has held its colour well through 2 winters. She smooths it briefly over the chair back with one hand, a gesture that is pure habit, pure domestic care, the small reflexive tidying that runs so deep in her that it happens without thought. And now there is only the corset. She is standing in her skirt and her corset and her chemise, the thin white cotton underlayer that sits between her skin and the bone structure, and she reaches around to her back one more time, both hands finding the lace at the centre back of the corset with the unerring accuracy of someone navigating in the dark by memory alone. The lace is pulled taut. It has been pulled taut since 7 o'clock this morning, when she dressed, when she took the 2 ends of the lace and drew them together and tied them off in a neat bow that has sat, patient and firm, against the small of her back for the last 14 hours. 14 hours. She finds the bow, she works it loose, the knot gives way, the 2 ends of the lace separating, and she draws them apart, and the corset, the whole beautiful, complicated, storied structure of it, begins, very slowly, to breathe. You are so warm right now, my friend, so safe, so perfectly held by whatever is beneath you. Feel that. Feel the surface that holds you, that asks nothing, that simply supports. Let her fingers work that lace while you sink a little deeper into your own rest. This happened so very long ago, and it is entirely peaceful. And you are here, and everything is quiet. The Victorian corset is a remarkable object. It is easy, from where we stand, to look back at it with something like alarm, and some of that alarm is not entirely misplaced. The corset's history contains real complexity, real tension between the aesthetic demands of the era and the physical realities of the body asked to conform to them. But it is also important, I think, to understand the corset as its wearer understood it not only as a constraint, but as a structure, as a kind of architecture. For a woman like her, the corset is not experienced primarily as an instrument of suffering. It is experienced as the shape of the day. It is the framework within which the upright, composed, capable daytime self is assembled each morning and dismantled each night. It is not comfortable. No, it was never designed for comfort. It was designed for posture, for silhouette, for the particular disciplined shape that her world considers not merely fashionable but correct. But she has worn it since her mid-teens, and the body, being the extraordinary adaptive instrument it is, has learned to exist within it, as a fish learns to exist within its particular river. The river is not the fish's preference, but the fish knows it. The fish is capable within it, and now the river is being released. She works the lace with both hands, standing very still, drawing it loose eyelet by eyelet from the bottom upward, the same methodical bottom-to-top logic she used with the bodice buttons, working against gravity, working toward freedom. Each eyelet she passes through, each inch of lace she loosens, produces a fractional expansion of the structure around her. The boning thin strips of whalebone sewn into vertical channels in the fabric begins to flex outward, minimally, incrementally, as the tension that holds it all together is gradually released. Third eyelet. Fourth. Fifth. She breathes. She has been breathing all day. Of course, the corset has never prevented breathing, not this one, not laced to this degree, but the breathing available within the corset is a specific, upper chest kind of breathing. It is breathing that uses the top third of the lungs freely and the bottom 2/3 more carefully, more shallowly. The lower rib cage held in a mild, constant embrace that is easy to stop noticing, but never entirely absent. Sixth eyelet. Seventh. The corset is loosening perceptibly now. She can feel it, the boning relaxing its precise geometry around her torso, the fabric giving, the whole structure beginning to soften from its daytime rigidity towards something more forgiving. Eighth. Ninth. And here, right here, at the ninth eyelet, something changes. She takes a breath. Not the upper chest breath of the corseted day. Something lower, something fuller. The breath moves down into her rib cage, and her rib cage moves with it, actually moves, actually expands outward in the way that a rib cage is designed to expand. The way it expands when there is nothing holding it, the way it has been wanting to expand, quietly and patiently, for the last 14 hours. She stops unlacing. She just breathes. In fully, completely, the air moving all the way down, the lower lungs filling, the rib cage lifting and widening, the body making the most of this small gift of expansion being offered to it, and out slowly, completely, the rib cage settling, the breath releasing without haste or performance, just the long, grateful exhale of a body, remembering what it feels like to breathe without constraint. This moves me. This moves me every time I think about it, that a breath, a single, full, unconstrained breath could be something to be grateful for. That the simple act of the rib cage expanding to its natural capacity could feel, after a day in the corset, like a luxury, like a mercy. We take so much for granted, we in our present comfort, we with our elastic waistbands and our breathable fabrics and our unstructured days. We forget, so easily, how extraordinary it is to simply breathe. She breathes again and again, 3 full breaths, each one a little deeper than the last, each one a little slower, her body reclaiming its natural rhythm with the quiet enthusiasm of something long patient finally given its due. Then she returns to the laces. 10th eyelet. 11th. The corset is quite loose now, the boning barely maintaining its shape, the whole structure collapsing gently inward as the tension is removed. She works the lace all the way to the top, the last 2 eyelets, and then she draws the lace free entirely, pulling the long tail of it through with one smooth motion, and the corset, her faithful, demanding, 14-hour companion, simply opens. She draws it away from her body. It comes off with a particular sensation that she has never been able to describe adequately to anyone who hasn't experienced it themselves. A sensation that is partly physical and partly something else, something that doesn't quite have a name. The removal of a structure that has been load-bearing all day, the sudden total cessation of a pressure so constant that it had become invisible, that she had stopped registering it as pressure at all, and now its absence is enormous, is revelatory, is a kind of spaciousness she has to adjust to, the way your eyes adjust when you step from a dim room into full light. She holds the corset in both hands for a moment. She looks at it. It is a beautiful object, in its way. Steel grey cotton coutil fabric, the boning channels stitched in neat parallel lines, the top edge finished with a ribbon of ivory silk that has softened and curved from years of wear to a shape that is entirely her shape. The lace runs through its eyelets in a long figure-8 pattern, slightly darkened from years of hands. It has the beauty of a well-made functional thing, the beauty of an object that has done its job faithfully and completely, and shows the evidence of that faithfulness in every worn and softened seam. She sets it over the chair back, on top of the bodice, and she stands in her camise and her skirt and her loosened hair, and she breathes, and the room is warm and quiet and amber, and the city outside is a murmur, and the fire in the grate is aglow, and she is, in this moment, the least constructed version of herself that the day has produced. Not the final version. The nightgown is still ahead. The washing, the brushing, the full unwinding, but this standing in the loose aftermath of the corset, in the chemise's cotton softness, with the full capacity of her lungs returned to her, this is a significant threshold. This is the body announcing, unambiguously, that the day is over. She rolls her shoulders, both of them, slowly, rotating them forward and then back, feeling the muscles stretch and release, the shoulder blades moving in wide arcs, the upper back grateful for the motion. Then she tilts her head gently to one side, her ear moving toward her shoulder, the side of her neck lengthening, and she feels the long muscle there, the one that has been holding her head carefully upright all day, issue a quiet complaint, and then, as she holds the stretch, a quieter relief. Other side, the same long pull, the same slow release. She straightens. She presses both palms flat against her lower back, the chemise thin enough that she can feel the warmth of her own hands through it, and she arches back slightly, just enough to feel the compression in her lower spine ease and open. A small sound escapes her, barely audible, barely a sound at all, more a release of breath shaped by the particular relief of a back that has been held in careful posture for many hours, finally being allowed a moment of honest stretch. She straightens again. She looks at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back at her is softer, looser. The shoulders are lower. The posture is easier. The whole silhouette has shifted from the disciplined vertical of the corseted day to something more natural, more human, more hers. The chemise is white cotton, simple and plain, and in the lamplight it glows very softly, and her loose hair falls around it, and she looks, she thinks, with a quiet, uncomplicated satisfaction. She looks like herself, not the self that went downstairs this morning, the other self, the one that lives up here, behind the closed door, in the amber room. Just breathe, my friend. Just breathe, just sink. Just let the warmth hold you. She is breathing fully now, deeply, freely, and you can breathe with her. In through the nose, slowly. Out through the mouth, slowly. The corset is off. The day is over. There is nothing left to hold. She takes one more long breath, the deepest yet, the full cathedral of her lungs filling from the very base, and she holds it for just a moment at the top, feeling the spaciousness of it, the extraordinary, ordinary miracle of a body breathing freely in the warm quiet of its own room. Then she lets it go, all of it, and she turns toward the washstand, where the ceramic basin is waiting, and the rose water, and the soft cloth that will be cool and clean and kind against her face. The washstand is in the corner nearest the window. It is a modest piece of furniture, not grand, not ornate, but solid and good, made of dark-stained pine, with a single drawer and a lower shelf, and a white marble top that has held its wash basin, and its jug, and its small collection of bottles and cloths every evening of her life in this house. Without once asking for acknowledgement or thanks, she has always liked this about the washstand, its steadiness, its quiet daily faithfulness. The basin is white ceramic, wide and deep, slightly rounded at the base, with a thin blue line around the rim that she has traced with her finger 1,000 times without meaning to. The way you trace familiar things not from intention but from a kind of affectionate habit that lives below conscious thought. The pattern on the jug matches white ceramic, blue line, a small spray of blue flowers near the handle that she has always thought was perhaps a forget-me-not, though she has never been certain. She crosses to it now, her stockinged feet quiet on the floorboards, the loose camise shifting softly with each step. The water in the jug has been sitting since the kitchen girl brought it up before supper. Not hot anymore, not cold, but something in between, the particular tepid quality that water acquires when it has been standing in a warm room long enough to lose its chill, without gaining any real warmth of its own. She lifts the jug with both hands. It is heavier than it looks. A full jug always is, and she pours. The water falls into the basin in a clean, clear arc, catching the lamplight as it falls, briefly luminous, briefly extraordinary, and then settling into the basin with a small musical sound, a low, round, liquid note that fills the quiet room and then fades, leaving behind only the soft lap of water finding its level. She sets the jug down. She looks at the water in the basin, still now, perfectly still, the surface smooth as a held breath. The lamplight plays across it in a slow amber shimmer, shifting slightly as the flame moves, and she can see her own face reflected there, vague and wavering and softer than the mirror, more like a suggestion of herself than a fixed image. She finds this, as she always finds it, quietly beautiful, the water's version of her, imprecise, gentle, without edges. She reaches for the small bottle to the left of the basin, the rose water. It is a simple bottle, clear glass, perhaps 4 inches tall, with a small cork stopper that she removes now between her thumb and forefinger, drawing it out with a soft, yielding pop. The smell reaches her immediately. Before the stopper is even fully out, before the bottle is lifted or tilted, the scent announces itself into the warm air of the room. Rose. Yes, but not the heavy, insistent rose of a perfume. Something lighter, something more like the memory of roses than roses themselves. The distilled suggestion of a summer garden, held in clear liquid, patient and waiting. She tips the bottle over the basin. A few drops, no more than a few. The rose water falls into the water below, thin, clear drops that disappear on contact, absorbed instantly, leaving only their scent and the very faintest iridescence where they fell, visible for just a moment before the water settles back into itself. She sets the bottle down. She breathes in. The scent of rose water in a warm room, in lamplight, at the end of a long day. There is something about this that defeats language, that exists in a register below words. It is clean and it is gentle, and it is old in the best possible way. Old like lavender is old, like beeswax is old, like the smell of clean linen dried in summer air is old. It is a smell that has comforted women for centuries. Long before the 1880s, long before Victorian England, women were making and using and finding comfort in rosewater, distilling the petals, keeping the bottles, splashing the cool liquid against tired skin at the end of long days. She is part of a very long line. You're here, my friend, aren't you? Warm and breathing and drifting. Let the scent of rosewater find you where you are, even now, even across all the years. There is nothing to do, nothing to manage. Just the cool ceramic basin and the lamp burning low, and a woman at her washstand while the city sleeps outside. Let that old world drift by while you rest. Rosewater had been a fixture of English domestic life long before the Victorian era. It appears in household recipe books dating back to the Tudor period, recommended for the skin, for headaches, for the eyes, for flavouring confections, for scenting linens. By the 1880s it was commercially available in small quantities from chemists and drapers, inexpensive enough for modest households, beloved enough to persist through every change of fashion and fancy. The Victorians, for all their fascination with new technologies and modern innovations, retained this older, gentler thing. The rosewater on the washstand, the small cork-stopped bottle that smelled of summer in all seasons. She reaches for the cloth now. It is folded neatly on the lower shelf of the washstand, a square of white cotton flannel, soft from many washings, the kind of softness that only laundering produces, the fibres gradually surrendering their resistance and becoming something closer to touch than fabric. She takes it in her right hand and lowers it into the basin, feeling the water receive it, the flannel darkening as it absorbs, the cloth going from dry warmth to wet cool in a slow, even bloom. She lifts it out. She wrings it, gently, not so much as to remove all the water, but enough that it holds its moisture rather than dripping. Her hands press the cloth between them with a steady, practiced pressure, the water running through her fingers in thin streams, cool and clean. And this sensation, the cool water moving through warm hands, is itself a small, uncomplicated pleasure. She straightens. She brings the cloth toward her face, and she pauses just for a breath, just for one breath with the cool, wet flannel hovering an inch from her nose, feeling the coolness radiating from it, the scent of the rosewater rising from it in a soft, barely perceptible cloud. Then she presses it gently to her face. The coolness is immediate and complete and entirely, deeply good. It is cool against her forehead first. She starts there, holding the cloth flat against the skin just above her brows, and the contrast with the warm room is sharp and sweet and clarifying. Then she draws it down slowly over her brow, across the bridge of her nose, down her cheeks, the cloth moving across the planes of her face with a gentle, even pressure that is neither massage nor washing exactly, but something of both, a slow, attentive passing of cool cloth over warm skin, the rosewater releasing its scent fully now against the heat of her face. She works methodically, unhurriedly. Forehead, the slight planes of her temples where the skin is thin and the blood moves close to the surface, the bridge of her nose, the sides of it, the small soft dip beneath the nostrils where the day's dust and warmth have settled, her cheeks, both of them, the cloth pressing and releasing and pressing again in slow strokes, the skin waking slightly under the attention, coming alive with the cool, clean contact, her chin, her jaw, the sides of her neck, where the cloth cools the pulse points and the skin there, warm and quick with blood, accepts the gift of coolness, with something she can only call gratitude. She rinses the cloth, back into the basin, the cotton releasing its accumulated warmth into the water, and she draws it out and wrings it again and brings it back to her face, fresh and cool, and she presses it to her eyes, this time both of them, the cloth covering them completely, the darkness beneath the cloth total and immediate and very, very restful. She holds it there, the darkness behind the cloth, the coolness against her eyes, the eyes that have been focusing and adjusting and managing visual information since she opened them this morning, is a relief so complete that it borders on the medicinal. Victorian household manuals frequently recommended cold water eye compresses at the end of the day, and there is something here that goes beyond fashion or custom, something that touches the actual, physical relief of the eye muscles releasing, the lids resting heavy against the cool cloth, the whole complex machinery of sight permitted to simply stop for a moment. She breathes, in and out. She holds the cloth against her eyes for a long, suspended moment, that she will not measure, will not hurry, will simply inhabit for as long as it lasts. What strikes me most about this moment, this woman at her washstand with a cloth pressed to her eyes, is how completely it removes her from the visible world. In an era when so much of a woman's experience was organized around being seen the correct appearance, the presented self, the managed impression, this brief, deliberate choosing of darkness, of not seeing, feels quietly significant. She has taken herself out of the field of vision, including her own. For this moment she is not looking at anything. She is not being looked at by anything. She exists, for these few seconds, in a warm, private darkness that belongs entirely to her. I find this quietly radical. She lowers the cloth. The room comes back amber and warm, the fire low in the grate, the lamp patient on the bedside table. She blinks once, twice, her eyes adjusting back to the lamplight, the familiar shapes of her room assembling themselves with the comfortable ease of things deeply known. She looks better already. She cannot see it from the outside, of course, but she can feel it the way her face feels after washing, cool and lightly awake, the day's accumulated tiredness not gone but gentled, the skin fresh and clean and quietly grateful for the attention. She takes the dry end of the cloth. There is always a dry end, always a section that has not touched the water, and she presses it lightly against her face, blotting rather than rubbing, the Victorian way, the careful way that respects the skin's delicacy. Victorian women's magazines were very specific about this cold water. Gentle patting, no harsh rubbing that might roughen the complexion or encourage redness. She pats her forehead, her cheeks, her chin. She sets the cloth down on the washstand's marble top, where it sits in a soft damp heap that she will attend to properly in the morning. She reaches for the small pot beside the rosewater bottle. Cold cream, a simple preparation of white wax and almond oil and rosewater, commercially available by this decade, applied nightly by women who understood, perhaps better than they are given credit for, the simple truth that skin looked after repays the attention. She dips 2 fingers into the cream. It is cool and white and faintly fragrant, and she touches them to her face with the same methodical, unhurried care she has brought to every part of this evening. Her forehead, her cheeks, the bridge of her nose. The cream disappears slowly into her skin as she works it in circular movements, soft and even, her fingers moving across the geography of her own face with a practiced tenderness. The skin receives it. The smell of it mingles with the rosewater in the air, and the combination cool cream and rosewater and lamp smoke and beeswax becomes, for a moment, the entire olfactory world of the room. She breathes it in. Just breathe, my friend. Just breathe it in. You're perfectly safe, perfectly warm. The night is long and quiet and you have nowhere to be. Let her cream and rosewater world carry you a little further from the waking one. Let your thoughts drift, slow and easy, like boats untied from their moorings, drifting without urgency toward a quieter shore. She wipes her fingers clean on the damp cloth. She looks at her face in the mirror, the small mirror mounted above the washstand, oval framed in dark wood, its glass slightly spotted with age near the lower right corner. The woman looking back at her has a clean, faintly luminous face, the cold cream doing what cold cream has always done, leaving the skin softer, the pores appearing smaller, the complexion a little smoother in the forgiving lamplight. Her hair is still loose around her face. Her eyes are bright with the washcloth's coolness. She thinks she looks rested. Not yet actually rested, not yet actually asleep, but on the visible path toward it, the face moving in the right direction. She reaches behind her and touches her hair, that long, loose fall of it, dark and warm and waiting. The brush is still on the dressing table. The mirror there is larger, better lit, and she has 100 strokes to give it. She turns from the washstand. The empty basin holds the faint scent of rosewater. The lamp burns on. She crosses back to the dressing table, her feet quiet and her movements easy, and she settles herself on the small upholstered stool before the mirror, drawing it slightly closer with both hands, arranging herself with the comfortable, a familiar precision of someone taking their seat for a ceremony they have performed 10,000 times. She reaches for the brush. She finds it. She lifts it, and she feels the weight of it settle into her palm, and she draws it once, slowly, through the full length of her hair, and the hair moves beneath it like dark water, and the lamp catches every strand, and she begins. 1. The brush moves through her hair from the crown of her head to the very tips, a long, slow, unbroken stroke that travels the full length of the dark fall of it from the roots at her scalp, where the bristles make first contact with a soft, even pressure, to the ends, where the hair tapers to its fine, loose edge, and the brush releases it into the air with a barely perceptible whisper. She feels every inch of it. The bristles against the scalp first, that initial contact, firm and warm and immediately, deeply pleasant in the way that things are pleasant when they address a need you have been carrying without fully registering. Her scalp has been pinned and coiled and held and compressed since 7 o'clock this morning. It has been patient. It has asked for very little. And now the brush's broad, even pressure moves across it, the bristles spreading gently through the roots of her hair, and the scalp all those thousands of small follicles, All that accumulated tension responds to the attention, the way dry ground responds to rain. Immediately. Gratefully. With a kind of spreading, blooming relief that moves outward from each point of contact like rings on water. Then down the shaft of the hair, the brush travelling smoothly, the bristles gathering the strands into alignment as they pass, the natural oils of her hair distributing from root toward tip in the long, practiced stroke that is the whole point of this ritual. That is what has been understood about hairbrushing since long before anyone thought to write it down. And then the tips, the very ends of her hair, fine and dark, and the brush releasing them into the warm air and the faint whisper of that release. 1. She is already slower. This is the thing about the 100 strokes, the thing she has always known, the thing she could not have explained to anyone who hasn't experienced it, that the counting is not really about the counting. The 100 is not a target. The 100 is a container, a shape given to time, a way of holding the evening's longest, most meditative act within a structure that removes the need to decide when it is over. She will not wonder, tonight, whether she has done enough. She will not cut it short from impatience or extend it from distraction. She will do 100, and the 100 will be exactly right, and the ritual will be complete, and there will be a particular satisfaction in that completion that no other number would provide. 2. The brush moves again, the same long, unhurried stroke, crown to tip, the bristles whispering against her scalp, the hair falling smooth behind the brush's passage, like a field of dark grass lying down in a slow wind. She watches herself in the mirror. She does not always watch herself. Sometimes she lets her eyes drift, lets them lose their focus on the middle distance, while the brushing happens almost independently, her hands knowing what to do without her supervision. But tonight, she is watching. Tonight she is interested in the woman in the mirror, in the amber-lit, loose-haired, softly focused woman who is drawing a brush through her hair with the slow ceremony of someone for whom this is, in its own small way, a sacred act. 3. The mirror in Victorian domestic life occupied a complex and fascinating position, simultaneously a practical tool and a charged cultural object. Mirrors in bedrooms were common by the 1880s, increasingly affordable as manufacturing improved, but the relationship between a Victorian woman and her reflection was layered with meaning that went well beyond the simply practical. To look at oneself was permitted, even encouraged, within the context of grooming and presentation, the mirror as instrument of the socially correct self. But sustained, unguarded self-contemplation existed in a slightly more ambiguous territory. The mirror as a place of honest encounter with oneself, without the mediating presence of others, without the performance. This was a private thing, a bedroom thing, a candlelit, hair down, 100 strokes thing. 4. 5. She is looking at herself honestly now, and what she sees is fine. She is fine. She is neither more nor less than she is. And tonight, in this room, with the lamplight doing its warm and forgiving work, she is content with that. Content with the face that is hers, with the dark hair moving beneath the brush, with the particular way the light catches the cheekbones at this angle, at this hour. She is not a woman who spends much time in unkind self-assessment. She has, over years of these evenings, arrived at a kind of easy truce with her own reflection. Not vanity, not indifference. Something quieter and more durable than either. Simple acceptance. 6. 7. She switches the brush to her left hand and draws it through the right side of her hair. She always alternates, always distributes the strokes evenly. Left side and right side, and the middle and the front, though the method is not rigid, not anxious, just naturally balanced, the way most things she does are naturally balanced. 8. You're drifting beautifully, my friend. I can feel it from here, that lovely weight that comes over the body when the mind begins to let go of the day. You're warm and safe and held, and somewhere in the amber lamplight of the 1880s, a woman is brushing her hair and counting, and the numbers are slow and even, and they are carrying you somewhere very quiet. Let them. Just let them carry you. 9. 10. The fire in the grate has settled lower since she last looked at it. The coals now more deep orange than bright. The active flames reduce to small intermittent flickers that move across the coal's surface like thoughts moving across a mind that is nearly asleep. The fire at this stage of its evening makes almost no sound. It breathes, it glows, it contributes its warmth to the room without any further drama. Having done the important work of the evening, and now content to simply persist, to ember along toward the ash it will eventually become. She finds this stage of the fire deeply companionable. 11, 12, 13. The rhythm of the brushing has established itself now. That is the other thing that happens somewhere between the first stroke and the 20th. That the rhythm finds itself, settles in, becomes self-sustaining. Her arm moves with a regularity that is not mechanical but organic. The way breathing is regular without being mechanical. The way a heartbeat is regular without being robotic. The brush rises and falls and moves through the hair and rises again, and her shoulder moves with it, and her head tilts very slightly to accommodate each stroke, and the whole gentle choreography of it proceeds without her needing to direct it. Her mind begins to loosen. 14, 15. This is the gift the 100 strokes give her. Not the brushed hair, though. The brushed hair is real and good, and her hair will be significantly smoother and more manageable for the braiding, but the emptying, the slow, stroke-by-stroke dissolution of the day's accumulated thoughts. They don't vanish all at once, the day's contents. They thin, they lose their urgency. The concern about the letter she needs to write stroke, the small awkwardness of the afternoon visit that didn't quite go as she'd hoped stroke, the question of the household accounts that she has been meaning to address stroke. One by one, not resolved, not dismissed, but gently deprioritized, set aside, the brush working them loose from their grip on her attention. The way the brush works tangles loose from her hair, not by force but by patient, repeated, unhurried passage. 16, 17, 18. Victorian household manuals, those extraordinary documents of domestic instruction that fill the 1880s with earnest, detailed advice on every imaginable aspect of home management, were remarkably consistent on the subject of the bedtime hairbrushing routine. 100 strokes was the standard recommendation, though some sources advocated for as many as 200. The stated reasons were practical: the distribution of the hair's natural oils from root to tip, the stimulation of the scalp to promote circulation and growth, the prevention of tangles that might cause breakage during sleep. All of this is true and sensible and grounded in genuine understanding of hair's needs. But the manuals, bound by their practical and instructional purposes, could not quite say the other thing. The thing she knows, standing here in her lamplit room with the brush moving in its slow, even arc, the thing that has nothing to do with oil distribution or scalp stimulation, that this is the thinking time, the being time, the nightly appointment with herself. 19. 20. She lets a thought in a good one, a quiet one. Tomorrow, if the weather is fine, she might walk in the park in the afternoon. She has been meaning to for a week, and the weather has not cooperated, but she thinks tomorrow it might. She can see it already, the paths between the plane trees, the leaves well into their turning by now, the ground thick with the amber and russet fall of them, the smell of autumn earth, the cold, clean air moving against her face. She can see herself there, quite clearly, walking without hurry among the falling leaves. She smiles. The mirror catches it, that small, private, unperformed smile of someone enjoying a pleasant private thought, and she notices it, and it deepens slightly, a smile noticing itself, and there is something delightful about this small loop of observation that makes her exhale softly through her nose in something close to a quiet laugh. 21, 22, 23. The brush catches a slight tangle near her left temple, a small, soft snarl of hair that offers brief resistance, and she slows even further, working the brush through it with gentle, careful strokes rather than pulling, the way she always manages tangles, the way her mother taught her, patience rather than force. The tangle always giving way. Eventually, if you simply refuse to hurry it, it gives way. The brush moves through smoothly. 24. Everything in life, she thinks, or half thinks, In the vague way thoughts come when the mind is soft and moving toward rest gives way eventually, if you simply refuse to hurry it. 25. Rest here, my dear friend. Right here, right now. Rest. The room is warm and the lamp is soft, and the fire is a slow orange glow, and the brush is moving through dark hair and counting upward, with the patient certainty of something that will always reach its destination. You have nothing to hold, nothing to manage, nothing to solve. Just the brush and the warmth and the count, moving forward, stroke by stroke, carrying you gently and completely towards sleep. 26, 27, 28. She has moved to the middle section of her hair now, the brush working through the densest part of it, and the sound of the brushing is slightly different here. A fuller, more resonant whisper, the bristles moving through more hair, the sound closer to a deep, soft rustle than the lighter whisper of the thinner sections at the sides. She likes this sound. She has always liked this sound. 29, 30. The room is so quiet. The particular quality of quiet that a room achieves late in the evening. Not silence, but a kind of settled hush, a layered stillness that is composed of many small ongoing things. The fire's subsiding warmth, the lamp's steady flame, the faint tick of the small clock on the mantelpiece counting its way toward midnight, the distant, barely perceptible sounds of the sleeping city filtering through glass and wool. All of these things are present. None of them disturbs. Together they compose the room's nighttime voice, low, continuous, deeply reassuring. 31. 32. She thinks about nothing very much. This is, she has decided, one of the great underrated luxuries of her life. The ability to think about nothing very much. To allow the mind to move without direction or intention, following the brushstrokes, following the warmth of the fire, following the amber drift of the lamplight across the ceiling. Not every moment needs to be filled with useful thought. Not every quiet is a vacancy to be populated. Some quiets are the point. Some quiets are what everything else has been building toward. 33, 34, 35. She is halfway to 50, a third of the way to 100. She is not counting obsessively. The number lives in some corner of her mind that operates independently, ticking forward reliably while the rest of her drifts. It will surface again around 70, around 85, and then again when she is close, the numbers becoming more present as the end approaches. For now, the brush moves, and the room holds its amber breath, and she is, stroke by stroke, being gently, thoroughly, irrevocably undone from the day. 36, 37. The hair is almost entirely smooth now, the brush moving through it without resistance, the strands lying together in a dark, even curtain that catches the lamplight along its length in a slow, shifting gleam. She draws the brush from crown to tip and the hair follows it, and the gleam travels down with each stroke, a small travelling light moving through the darkness of it, from top to bottom. 38, 39, 40. She pauses. Not for any particular reason, not from tiredness, not from distraction. She pauses, the way music sometimes has a rest in it. A deliberate beat of stillness that makes what comes after more felt, more present. She holds the brush at the bottom of the stroke, at the tips of her hair, and she looks at herself in the mirror and she breathes. The woman in the mirror breathes back, and they regard each other, these two versions of herself, the one holding the brush and the one reflected in the amber glass, with the quiet, uncomplicated recognition of two people who know each other very well. 41. The brush begins again, and the room counts forward, stroke by stroke, into the deepening night. The 100 strokes are done. She sets the brush down on the dressing table with the particular satisfaction of a completed thing, that small, quiet click of the tortoiseshell back against the wood, carrying more weight than its sound suggests, the weight of a ritual concluded, a ceremony properly observed, a promise kept to herself that she makes and keeps every single night, without fanfare or acknowledgement from anyone but herself. She runs her fingers through her hair once, from root to tip, following the path the brush has made, and the hair moves with her fingers like something newly settled, newly composed, the 100 strokes having organised it into a smoothness and a warmth that her own hands can feel clearly. It is different hair than it was an hour ago. Not different in any way that anyone but she would notice, perhaps, but different to her own touch, sleeker, warmer, more itself. The natural oils moved from root to tip exactly as the household manual intends, but also something else, something the manual doesn't mention. Softer, in every sense of that word. She gathers her hair loosely in both hands and draws it over one shoulder, a familiar movement, a nightly gesture, preparing it for the loose sleep plait she will do in a moment. But first there is the nightgown. She looks toward the bed. It is draped across the foot of it, her nightgown, laid there earlier by the kitchen girl with the tidy, practical care of someone who understands the value of finding things where you expect them. It is folded loosely, not pressed into sharp creases but gathered softly, the way something is laid out when the intention is warmth rather than formality. She crosses to the bed to collect it. Her stockinged feet move quietly across the rug, then onto the floorboard beyond the rug's edge, the board slightly cool even through her stockings, the temperature difference immediate and precise, and then back onto the rug on the other side, the wool pile warm and thick and yielding beneath her feet, and she notices this small sequence of surfaces the way she notices many things at this hour, with a clarity and a gentleness that the busy day rarely affords. She picks up the nightgown. She holds it for a moment in both hands, feeling the weight and drape of it. It is cotton flannel, a winter nightgown, brought out a week ago when the temperatures began their serious October descent, and the summer nightgown, light and thin, was finally folded away until spring. The flannel is white, or has been white. It is the particular soft white of something that has been washed many times, a white that has mellowed very slightly toward cream, that has absorbed years of laundering and pressing and wearing, and become, in the process, something finer than it began. New white is sharp and bright and slightly harsh. Old white is this, gentle, warm, forgiving. The nightgown is long floor length, as all her nightgowns are, with sleeves that reach the wrists, and a high neck edged in a narrow band of simple white broderie anglaise. The tiniest decoration, the only decoration, a row of small embroidered eyelets along the neckline that she has always found quietly lovely, in the same way she finds all small, careful, handmade things quietly lovely. Someone made this. Someone sat with needle and thread and made this small ornament for a garment that only its wearer would ever see. She finds this thought touching every time it reaches her. She sets the nightgown on the bed and reaches for the buttons at the waistband of her skirt. The skirt is the last substantial piece of her daytime clothing, and its removal is a different kind of undressing than the corset was less dramatic, less physically significant, but carrying its own particular quality of release. The skirt is heavy, it is full. It is the most visually present element of her daytime dress, the thing that shapes and announces her presence in a room, the wide, dark sweep of fabric that takes up space and declares itself. And it is, for all its solidity and presence, simply a skirt, and now it is time for it to go. The buttons at the waistband come open, 4 of them, large and practical, the closure at the side of her left hip, and the waistband loosens, and she gathers the fabric in her hands and steps out of the skirt with the neat, unhurried choreography of a movement so familiar it requires no thought. The skirt comes off. She folds it over the chair back over the bodice and the corset, the 3 of them making a small, orderly pile of the day's clothing. The day deconstructed and stacked neatly on the back of a chair, waiting to be reassembled tomorrow. She is in her chemise and stockings now. The camise she has already been wearing it through the washing, through the brushing, is thin, white cotton, sleeveless, reaching to just above her knees, the simplest garment she owns, and in many ways the most comfortable. Without the corset over it, without the skirt below it, it moves with her completely, the cotton following every movement of her body with a lightness that is, after the structured architecture of the daytime, quietly extraordinary. She reaches down and unrolls her stockings, one at a time, right first, then left, the cotton rolling down her calf and over her heel and off, each stocking bundled into a neat roll that she sets on the dressing table beside the hairpins and the brush. Her feet on the rug are bare, now bare and warm, and immediately, completely glad of it, the toes spreading very slightly, that small involuntary spreading that bare feet do, when they are finally permitted to exist as their natural selves, rather than as the objects that live inside shoes. She curls her toes once into the rug's pile, just once, just to feel it. Something in her chest does a small, uncomplicated thing, a kind of delight that has no name, that is simply the body's response to the pleasure of bare feet on a warm rug at the end of a long day. You're safe here, my friend. Warm and settled and perfectly at ease. Let your own body relax a little further. Feel the surface beneath you. Feel how fully and patiently it holds you. Feel the warmth that is all around you and belongs to you entirely. She is almost there, almost in her nightgown, almost in the softest version of herself. And you are almost somewhere very quiet indeed. She draws the chemise over her head in one motion, arms crossing, hands gathering the hem, the cotton lifting away in a smooth upward sweep, the room's air touching her skin immediately with a cool, clear contact that lasts only a moment before her skin's own warmth reasserts itself. She stands quite still for a moment. The fire in the grate is a deep orange glow now, barely more than embers, and its warmth reaches across the room in a broad, diffuse radiation that she can feel against the fronts of her legs, against her forearms. The lamplight falls across her from the bedside table, a soft, indirect amber that has no sharpness to it, that is all warmth and suggestion, that turns the plain room into something that looks, she has always thought, like an interior painting, like something Vermeer might have been interested in, the woman in the lamplight, the domestic quiet, the ordinary made luminous by the simple alchemy of flame and shadow. She is not thinking this. She has never heard of Vermeer, but she is feeling it, this quality of the room, this particular beauty of lamplight in a small warm space in the wordless, embodied way that people have always felt beautiful things before anyone found language for them. She reaches for the nightgown. She gathers the hem in her hands and lifts it and draws it over her head, and the flannel descends over her shoulders, over her arms, over her body in a long, slow, downward movement that is almost exactly the opposite of dressing. Dressing is an assembly. This is a receiving, the nightgown coming down around her like something opening, like something welcoming, the flannel unfolding from its gathered state into the full length and breadth of itself. It settles over her. The flannel makes contact with her skin, and it is warm. Immediately, entirely warm in the particular way of flannel, which holds warmth differently than cotton, differently than wool, holds it the way a held hand holds warmth close, personal, given rather than borrowed. The fabric that has been lying across the foot of the bed, in the warm room, for the last few hours, has absorbed the room's warmth into itself, and now it passes that warmth directly to her skin, and her skin receives it, and the transaction is simple and complete and very, very good. She smooths the nightgown down with her hands from her hips downward, her palms following the flannel over her thighs, her calves all the way to the hem where it grazes the top of her feet, and the fabric settles into place, finding its natural drape, the fullness of it gathering slightly at the floor's edge, the way a long garment does when the body it covers stops moving. She straightens. She is, at last, in her nightgown. She stands for a moment and simply breathes in it, feeling the full, specific luxury of a garment designed only for comfort, shaped only for rest, constructed with no consideration whatsoever for appearance or impression or the management of any social encounter. The buttons at the neck are small and white, and there are 3 of them, and she does them up now not because she is cold, not yet, but because there is a rightness to it, a completeness, the nightgown fastened and settled and declaring itself finished, ready, complete, done. The dressing table mirror shows her a different figure than the one who sat down to brush her hair. The same woman, yes, the same face, the same dark hair that she must still plait loosely for sleep, but changed in the way of someone who has shed a layer that was performing a role and arrived at a layer that is simply being. The nightgown is soft and white and full, and it makes no claims. It asks nothing of its wearer. It simply covers and warms and permits. She has always loved this garment, not in the way she loves beautiful things, not with the particular pleasure she takes in a well-made hat or a piece of music played finely, but in the way you love a thing that has been kind to you reliably for a long time, faithfully, without condition, the nightgown as a trustworthy companion to the most honest hours of her day, the nightgown as the garment in which she is most completely, most undefendedly herself. She picks up the brush from the dressing table one more time, not for more brushing. The 100 strokes are done, but to begin the loose plait. She gathers her hair in her left hand, holding it at the nape of her neck, and she divides it into 3 sections, with the practiced efficiency of a woman who has plaited her own hair every night since she was old enough to manage it. No mirror needed for this. The fingers know the sections. The fingers know the rhythm: cross left over middle, cross right over middle, cross left, cross right, down and down, loose and unhurried, the plait forming in her hands like a slow weaving, each crossing deliberate but not tight, the goal being containment rather than compression, the hair gathered and guided rather than held. The plait reaches its end. She draws a small ribbon from the dressing table, a length of cotton ribbon, white and narrow, kept in the small dish beside the hairpins, and she ties off the plait with it, a simple bow, loose enough to be comfortable through a night of sleep, but secure enough to hold. She lets the plait fall forward over one shoulder. She looks at it for a moment, this soft, loose rope of dark hair lying against the white flannel of her nightgown, and she feels the contentment of a thing properly prepared, everything attended to, the hair plaited, the face washed, the clothing changed, the body given everything it has asked for throughout the long evening. She is almost ready. Rest here with me, my dear friend. Breathe slowly. Feel the warmth of wherever you are. She is in her nightgown now, white flannel and bare feet and a loose plait over her shoulder, and she is moving through the amber room toward the small writing desk in the corner, where her diary waits with its brown leather cover and its plain pages and its brass clasp. And she has something to write. The writing desk is small. It occupies the corner between the window and the wardrobe, a modest, purposeful little piece of furniture. Nothing like the grand writing desks of the wealthy households she has occasionally visited, with their leather inlays and their many drawers, and their suggestion of important correspondence conducted by important people. This desk is plain dark wood, perhaps 2 feet wide, with a single shallow drawer and a surface just large enough to hold what needs to be held: the diary, the inkwell, the pen, the small brass candlestick she moves here from the dressing table, on evenings when the lamplight from across the room feels insufficient for writing. She pulls the candlestick with her now, carrying it carefully in one hand, the flame bending forward as she walks, and then recovering as she settles into the chair before the desk, a straight-backed chair, simply cushioned, not designed for long hours of sitting, which is appropriate, because she never sits here for long hours. The diary is not a place for long hours. It is a place for the concentrated, honest, brief accounting of the day, the essential distillation, the few sentences or paragraphs that will stand, when everything else about today has faded, as evidence that this day happened, that she was here, that she noticed. She opens the desk drawer. The diary is there where it always is, where it has been every evening for the past 3 years, sitting in the drawer beneath a small folded handkerchief, and beside the spare pen nib she keeps meaning to use and somehow never quite does. It is a bound book, roughly the size of a hymnal, covered in brown leather that has darkened at the corners from years of handling. The brass clasp on the front is simple, a small tab that fits into a small loop, and it is not locked. She has no lock. She has never felt the need for one, and the absence of it is itself a kind of statement, quiet and unannounced, about the particular safety and privacy of this room, this corner, this hour. She lifts the diary from the drawer. She sets it on the desk before her. She holds it for a moment with both palms flat against the cover, feeling the leather warm slowly under her hands. It is slightly cool from the drawer, that drawer coolness that enclosed things acquire, and she feels it transfer from the leather into her palms, and then, as the seconds pass, feels her warmth transfer back into the leather, the exchange moving in both directions simultaneously, the way warmth always moves between 2 things in contact. Then she undoes the clasp. The diary opens. It opens with the particular ease of a well-used book falling open near the back, where the current pages are, the spine having long since accommodated itself to being opened in this region, the leather softened and broken in here from the accumulated weight of hundreds of evenings like this one. She turns to today's date, a Tuesday in October, the number written neatly in the top right corner of the right-hand page in her own hand, from this morning when she opened the book briefly before breakfast and wrote the date in preparation, this small act of anticipation, this morning gift to her evening self. She looks at the blank page beneath the date. The page is cream-coloured and smooth, with a very faint horizontal ruling, the lines close together and evenly spaced, and in the candlelight the paper seems almost to glow that particular quality of good paper in candlelight, warm and inviting, the surface alive, with a faint texture that catches the light in microscopic peaks and valleys. She reaches for the pen. The pen is a dip pen, a long wooden handle, dark and smooth, with a steel nib fitted at the end. She lifts it from the pen rest beside the inkwell and holds it lightly between her fingers in the particular practiced way of someone for whom holding a pen is as natural as holding a fork, as unremarkable as holding her own hand. She holds it neither too tightly nor too loosely, the grip of someone who has written since childhood and has long since stopped thinking about the grip. She leans forward slightly. She dips the nib into the inkwell. The ink is dark blue. She has always preferred blue to black, though she could not give you a reason beyond the simple fact of her preference, the quiet, private conviction that blue is the colour of thoughts and black is the colour of official things, and her diary is emphatically not an official thing. The ink coats the nib in a small, precise meniscus, and she lifts the pen and touches the nib to the paper, and she begins to write. You're drifting now, my friend, aren't you? So peacefully, so completely. Just breathe with her the soft scratch of the pen on the paper, the small warm circle of candlelight, the amber room around her, the quiet, the warmth. Nothing from that world can reach you now. You are perfectly safe, perfectly warm, sinking deeper with every word she writes. Victorian women's diaries are among the most extraordinary documents their century produced. They exist in archives all over the world, hundreds, thousands of them, brown leather or cloth-bound or plain paper wrapped, filled with the handwriting of women whose names history mostly forgot. They record the weather. They record visitors received and calls paid. They record small illnesses, small recoveries, small pleasures, small frustrations. They record what was for dinner, what was read aloud in the evening, what the garden looked like on a particular September morning. They record, with extraordinary faithfulness and remarkable consistency, the texture of the ordinary. This is what strikes historians when they encounter Victorian women's diaries in any number. Not the dramatic events, not the occasional moments of visible feeling that break through the surface, though those moments are there, and they are often quietly breathtaking, but the sheer, sustained, devoted attention to the ordinary, the daily accounting of a life that most of the world considered unremarkable, and that its liver clearly, quietly considered worth recording. She does not think of herself as making history. She is simply writing down her day. The pen moves across the paper, that soft, specific scratch of steel nib on paper that is one of the most characteristic sounds of the Victorian interior, a sound that filled every middle-class home where literacy met leisure, where the long evenings provided time for the writing of letters, diary entries, household accounts, the keeping of all the small written records that held a domestic life in order and meaning. She writes about the morning first. The walk to the market, the cold of the October air on her face, the pleasure of it, the particular quality of the light on the market stalls, the late-season apples gleaming in their wooden boxes, the redness of them almost too much, almost theatrical, against the grey of the morning. She writes 3 lines about the apples. This would seem, to many eyes, disproportionate 3 lines about apples, about their colour and their smell, when she leaned close to a box and the crisp green sweetness of them reached her. But she writes them without apology, without self-censorship, because this diary has no audience but herself, and in here, without audience, the apples get exactly as many lines as the apples warrant. 3 lines. She writes about the afternoon, a call paid to her friend, the warmth of that friend's small sitting room, the tea that was very good, and the conversation that ranged, gently and pleasantly, across half a dozen topics without settling firmly on any of them. The kind of conversation that is less about its content than about the quality of ease it produces. She writes, "A good afternoon, this. I came away lighter than I went." She looks at this sentence for a moment. She has written it quickly, without much deliberation, and it has landed with an accuracy that pleases her, this small, plain sentence that says exactly what she means without any decoration, that describes the most important thing about the afternoon in 7 words. I came away lighter than I went. She continues. She writes about the supper brief, factual, the cold mutton that was perfectly adequate, and the bread that was perhaps a day older than ideal. She writes about the fire in the drawing room that drew well tonight, and the passage from the novel she has been reading that she has been turning over in her mind all evening, a sentence about autumn that she considers almost perfectly observed, that she wants to remember, and so she copies it into the diary now carefully, precisely, not wanting to lose a single word of it. Then she pauses. She dips her pen again. She thinks for a moment, not a heavy, laboured thinking, but a gentle, floating consideration, the pen held lightly above the paper, while her mind drifts across the day, looking for the thing she most wants to say, the essential thing, the thing that, if she were to close the diary right now and not open it again for 20 years, she would want her future self to know about this particular Tuesday in October. And she finds it. She writes, "This evening I stood at the window for a long while and watched the street grow quiet, and I thought about how many people, all over this city, are doing the same small things tonight that I am doing, climbing their stairs, washing their faces, lying down. All of us moving toward the same rest in our different rooms, our different lives. This thought made the world feel very full of company. I am grateful for it." She reads it back. She reads it slowly, her eyes moving along the lines of her own handwriting, that familiar slanted cursive, the letters leaning forward slightly as if eager to reach the end of the line, the spacing even and unhurried, and she finds that the sentences say what she means, that they hold the feeling she had at the window without diminishing it, that they are, in their plain and unadorned way, true. She is a good writer. She does not know this. There is no mechanism in her world by which she would come to know it, no audience for these pages, no mirror that would show her this particular thing about herself, but she is. The sentences she writes in this diary, their clarity, their quiet precision, their ability to find the essential thing without fuss, are the sentences of someone who pays attention and then reports what attention finds, without embellishment, without performance. They are, I think, very beautiful. She turns the page. There are 2 more things she wants to write, and she writes them now with the efficiency of someone who is beginning to feel the pull of the bed across the room, not urgency, not tiredness exactly, but the comfortable gravity of a body that has been cared for and is ready to complete the last steps of its evening. She writes a brief note about a book she wants to find. She heard it mentioned this afternoon at her friend's house, and she wants to remember the title, wants to seek it out at the lending library on Thursday. She writes the title carefully. She underlines it once. She writes, "Last of all, and this is always the last thing, has been the last thing every evening for as long as she has kept this diary, a single sentence about something she is grateful for. Not from obligation, not from the guidance of any particular improving text, but from her own developed conviction that the day deserves this final acknowledgement, that something in every day, however small, however ordinary, however barely visible, is worth naming. Tonight," she writes, "I am grateful for the smell of rosewater, and for the way the fire looks when it's burned down to embers, and for the particular weight of my own hair." She reads it back. She nods, very slightly, a small internal nod, not visible to anyone, barely visible even to herself, and she sets the pen down on its rest. She closes the diary. She does the clasp, that small, familiar tab, finding its loop with the ease of 1,000 repetitions, and she holds the closed book for a moment with both hands. The way she held it when she opened it, the leather warm now from the lamp and from her own hand's warmth. The entries inside it today's, and the hundreds before today's, filling page after page in her careful slanted hand, will exist longer than she knows, will outlast the house, possibly, will outlast everyone who ever knew her name, tucked in some drawer, passed to some descendant, ending up in some archive, read by eyes that belong to a century she will never see. But she does not know this. She is simply done writing. She puts the diary back in the drawer in its place, under the folded handkerchief, beside the spare nib, and she closes the drawer with a soft, decisive push. She picks up the candlestick. She looks at the flame for a moment, this small fire she has carried with her through the evening, from dressing table to washstand and back, from dressing table to writing desk, and the flame, as it always does, returns her gaze with its own particular kind of attention, moving, breathing, alive in the way that fire is alive, which is completely and briefly, and without any concern for the future. She rises from the chair. She is done writing. She is done thinking. The day is recorded, accounted for, acknowledged, and closed. Now there is only the bed. She turns toward it, that white and waiting rectangle across the room, the turned-down sheet bright in the lamplight, the pillows full and cool-looking, and she walks toward it through the amber quiet of her room, the candlestick in her hand, the loose plait over her shoulder, the flannel nightgown moving around her ankles with each step, and just before she reaches the bed she pauses. There is one more thing to do first. One important, practical, deeply satisfying thing. The warming of the bed. She sets the candlestick on the bedside table. The flame settles as she releases it, that small, reliable settling of a carried flame coming to rest. The brief agitation of the journey smoothing out into the steady, vertical burn of a flame that is no longer moving through the air but simply existing in it. It joins the oil lamp already burning there, and together they make a small warm constellation on the bedside table, two flames, two soft aureoles of amber light overlapping at their edges, doubling the warmth, doubling the glow. She looks at the bed. The warming pan is propped against the wall beside the fireplace, where the kitchen girl has left it a long-handled thing of brass, the pan itself round and perhaps 12 inches across, fitted with a pierced lid through which the heat from its contents can radiate outward in a broad, even warmth. The handle is dark wood, turned smooth from years of hands. The brass of the pan is worn at its centre, burnished by the repeated friction of bed linen, to a softer, deeper gold than its edges, which retain the brighter, sharper finish of less handled metal. She crosses to the fireplace. The coals in the grate are low, but not out a deep, slow orange now, past their useful heat for warming a room, but still carrying enough ember life to serve a warming pan. She lifts the pan by its handle, feeling the familiar weight of it heavier than you expect, the brass substantial, the whole object having a satisfying solidity that speaks to its purpose and its age. She holds it at an angle over the grate, and with the small iron shovel that hangs beside the fireplace, she scoops a careful measure of the glowing coals into the pan, not too many, not too few, enough to produce a broad, gentle warmth that will spread through the bed linens over the next several minutes without overheating, without scorching, just warming. She fits the lid back over the pan. Through the pierced holes in the lid, small points of orange glow show through the coals inside, visible in their miniature constellation. A dozen tiny fires breathing gently within the brass enclosure. She can feel the heat through the wooden handle even at this distance, a radiating warmth that moves up the handle and reaches her palm with a soft, even pressure. She turns toward the bed. The practice of warming the bed is ancient, far older than the Victorian era that employed it so faithfully. In English households, bed-warming pans appear in domestic inventories stretching back centuries, the need for them driven by the simple, persistent truth of cold stone houses and cold winters, and the very great difficulty of falling asleep in a bed whose sheets have been sitting in an unheated room since morning. The Victorian bedroom, for all its relative comfort compared to what came before, was still governed by this truth. The fire in the bedroom grate when there was one warmed the air of the room, but the bed itself, particularly in October, could retain a chill that no amount of ambient warmth entirely reached. Hence the warming pan, Hence this nightly ritual of coals and brass and the slow, careful passage of warmth through linen. She folds back the coverlet and the top sheet together, drawing them down to the foot of the bed in one smooth motion, revealing the expanse of white bottom sheet beneath, slightly wrinkled from where it was turned back earlier, the cotton holding a faint impression of the afternoon's arrangement, a ghost of the morning's making. The sheet is not cold, the room's warmth has reached it, but neither is it warm in the way it needs to be. It is a coolness that would only become apparent once a body lay down within it, a coolness that would take many minutes to overcome through body heat alone. She does not like to lie down in a cold bed. Very few people do. She lifts the warming pan and slides it beneath the top sheet, between the sheet and the bottom, and she begins to move it slowly, steadily, in long sweeping arcs across the bed. Left side first, the pan travelling from the head of the bed toward the foot, the brass gliding smoothly across the cotton with a whisper of fabric on metal, the heat radiating outward through the sheet and into the air of the space between the layers, warming it, gentling it, transforming it from the cool air of an October evening into something that anticipates a body. She works methodically. Left side, full length, then centre, then right side. The pan moves under her guidance, with the ease of long practice, the handle's length giving her good leverage, the arc of each stroke wide and even. She watches where the pan has been the sheet above it, very slightly raised as the pan passes, the fabric settling back after the pan has moved on, retaining for a while the warmth the pan has deposited. She can see, or imagines she can see, the faint softening of the sheet in the pan's wake, the cotton relaxed, opened, receptive. She brings the pan back to the centre of the bed. She holds it there for a long moment, letting the heat concentrate in the middle, the place where she will be, roughly, when she sleeps, the place her body will occupy and warm through the night, the heart of the bed. The heat radiates upward through the sheet, and she holds her free hand above it, palm down, and she can feel it clearly, a broad, soft warmth rising, not sharp or concentrated, but diffuse and generous, the kind of warmth that does not demand attention but simply offers itself. Just breathe, my friend. Just breathe. You're so warm right now, aren't you? Warm and still and sinking, your body heavy and quiet. She's warming the bed for you, you might almost say. This gentle, careful warmth spreading through white cotton in an October evening 140 years ago, finding its way forward through all that time to reach you here, to reach you now. You're safe. You're held. There is nothing left to do. She withdraws the pan slowly, drawing it toward the foot of the bed, lifting it clear of the sheets. The bed is warm. She can tell without touching it, can tell from the slight relaxing of the cotton surface, from the faint warmth rising from the turned-down sheet when she leans close. She sets the warming pan aside, carrying it back to its place against the wall, where it will cool slowly through the night and be emptied of its ash in the morning. The brass handle she sets against the skirting board with a careful quietness, not wanting to make noise now, not wanting to break the particular quality of the room's silence that has established itself over the last half hour, and that she has come to think of as the silence of the almost sleeping. She returns to the bed. She draws back the top sheet and coverlet to the right-hand side, her side, and she smooths them with both hands, travelling from the pillow downward in long, even strokes, chasing out any remaining wrinkles, ensuring the sheet lies perfectly flat and perfectly ready. The cotton is smooth beneath her hands and warm, genuinely warm now. The warming pan's work complete, the bed transformed from a piece of furniture into something more, into a welcome. Victorian domestic manuals, and there were. In the 1880s, a great many Victorian domestic manuals, since the Victorians had an inexhaustible appetite for instructional domestic literature, devoted considerable attention to the proper making of a bed. The right materials, cotton or linen sheets, wool blankets in winter, a good feather bed or a firm horsehair mattress beneath. The right layering, the bottom sheet pulled tight and tucked securely, the top sheet folded back over the blanket edge at the pillow end, by exactly the right amount, neither too little, which looked untidy, nor too much, which looked excessive. The right pillows, two, generally the sleeping pillow and a bolster, both well filled, both properly encased. This bed has all of this. The mattress is horsehair firm and supportive, the Victorian preference, though she knows that some households are moving towards spring mattresses, which she has tried once at her cousin's house and found rather startlingly soft, like lying on something that couldn't quite make up its mind. Her own mattress she trusts. She knows its specific topography, the slight depression near the centre where years of sleep have shaped it, not deep enough to be inconvenient, deep enough to be recognisable, deep enough to feel, each night, like something that knows her. She reaches for the pillow. She gives it a firm, fond shake, both hands gripping the top edge, a single, decisive downward shake that redistributes the feathers inside, that restores the pillow from the slight flatness of its daytime sitting to the full roundness it is capable of, the feathers resettling with a soft internal whisper that is one of her favourite small sounds of the evening. She sets the pillow back and presses it with her palm, a single, testing press, feeling the give of it, the way it receives and returns the pressure with a comfortable resilience. She adjusts it fractionally to the left. She presses it again. Perfect. She does the same with the second pillow, the shake, the resettling whisper, the pressing palm, the small adjustment, everything in order, everything as it should be. The bed is warm and smooth and ready, and it has taken her perhaps 8 minutes from beginning to end, and those 8 minutes have been, in the way of this entire evening, entirely unhurried, entirely attentive, entirely given over to the small and important work of preparing a good rest. She steps back from the bed. She looks at it. She looks at it the way she looks at things she has made well, not with pride exactly, but with satisfaction. The satisfaction of a craftsperson regarding a completed piece of work. The sheets are smooth. The pillow is full. The coverlet, that patchwork of jewel tones, deep green and burgundy and midnight blue, the squares slightly uneven, the seams slightly variable, the whole thing having the particular organic beauty of something made by hand over a long time with attention and patience, is folded back at exactly the right angle, inviting without being presumptuous. The bed looks, she thinks, like rest itself given physical form. What moves me about this whole preparatory ceremony, the warming and the smoothing and the shaking of pillows, is the seriousness of it, the full, quiet, dignified seriousness that she brings to the preparation of a bed. We live in a time that has rather lost the habit of this seriousness about rest. We fall into our beds, often, without ceremony, the sleep something to be grabbed between the end of one day and the demands of the next, rather than something carefully, lovingly prepared for. But she understands, in a way that her era understood more broadly than ours, that rest is not a passive thing. Rest is an achievement. Rest is something you arrive at through preparation, through intention, through the deliberate creation of the conditions that allow the body and the mind to do the extraordinary thing they do every night without recognition or applause, the extraordinary thing of letting go, the extraordinary thing of trust, the complete, surrendered trust of a sleeping body which has released its vigilance entirely and given itself over to the darkness and the warmth and the mystery of sleep, which asks nothing of you and restores everything. She respects this. She always has. She reaches forward and touches the sheet once more lightly, just the backs of her fingers against the warm cotton, a last brief confirmation of what she has made. The warmth is still there, gently present, the bed holding it the way good things hold what they have been given. She draws her hand back. She looks at the room, a long, slow look that takes in all of it. The fire's ember glow, the lamp and candle on the bedside table, the curtained window, the dressing table with its row of hairpins and the tortoiseshell brush, the washstand with its basin and rosewater bottle, the chair with its pile of folded day clothing. The room looks, in this moment, exactly as it should. Everything in its place, everything attended to, the evening's work completed, with the same quiet care that every part of this evening has been completed with, not quickly, not carelessly, not as a series of obligations to be discharged before something more interesting, but as its own complete and sufficient thing, as the thing itself. She realizes, she feels it suddenly and simply, Without searching for it, she is happy. Not dramatically, not in a way that demands naming or examining, but in the way that a body at the end of a good day, having been fed and washed and cared for, having moved through its evening with full attention and unhurried presence, is simply, fundamentally, quietly happy. The happiness of sufficiency. The happiness of a life that is not grand or remarkable, but that is, in this moment, in this room, entirely and beautifully enough. She breathes, and then she reaches for the bedside table, where the book is waiting. There is still a little time before the lamp goes out. There are still a few pages left in the chapter she began 2 evenings ago, and she has been looking forward, in the way she looks forward to small pleasures when they are deferred, to finding out what happens when the young woman in the story reaches the house on the hill and knocks on the door that has been standing unopened through 3 chapters. She will find out tonight. She picks up the book. She settles herself on the edge of the bed, sitting first, then drawing her legs up and sliding back against the pillow, the warm sheet coming up with her as she moves, the flannel nightgown arranging itself around her with the cooperative ease of a garment that is, above all, trying to be comfortable. She leans back against the pillow. She opens the book, and the room holds her warm and amber and completely still as she begins to read. The book falls open in her hands. Not randomly, it falls open the way well-read books fall open, to the place that has been most recently and most frequently visited, the spine having softened and bent itself accommodatingly to the spot where her attention has been living for the past 2 evenings. The pages part with a soft, papery whisper, and she finds her place without hunting for it, without the slight anxiety of the lost page. It is right there, exactly where she left it, the sentence she stopped at, still waiting at the top of the right-hand page, with the patience of a good sentence that knows its reader will return. She settles more deeply into the pillow. The book is a novel. She would not tell you this was improving literature, would not claim it as anything more than what it is, which is a story that she finds absorbing and well told, and peopled with characters she has come to feel a genuine affection for over the past 2 weeks of evenings. Victorian reading culture drew careful distinctions between improving literature and mere entertainment, between the serious novel that educated and elevated and the lighter novel that simply delighted. She has always been quietly skeptical of this distinction. A story that makes you care about people who do not exist seems to her, in its own way, a rather serious achievement. This story makes her care. She has been reading for most of her life, reading with the particular hunger of someone for whom books have always been a primary means of access to experiences and perspectives and worlds beyond the narrow geography of her own daily life. As a girl, she read everything she could lay hands on. As a young woman, she was a faithful visitor to the lending library. Now, as a woman in her own house with her own small shelf of owned volumes and her continued lending library subscription, she reads every evening without exception, even if only for 20 minutes, even if tiredness limits her to a single page before her eyes begin to close. The reading is not negotiable. It is as much a part of the evening as the hairpins or the rose water. It is perhaps the part she would surrender last of all. She finds the sentence. The young woman in the story is standing before a door on the side of a hill, a door set into the stone of the hillside itself, half hidden by ivy, approached by a path that has clearly not been walked in some time. She has been walking toward this door for 3 chapters. She raises her hand to knock, and the narrator, who has been following this young woman with a voice of warm, unhurried attention that our own narrator finds deeply sympathetic pauses before the knocking to describe the quality of the silence that surrounds the door, the way the ivy moves slightly in a wind that can barely be felt, the way the stone is cool beneath the young woman's fingers when she reaches out and touches it before she knocks, the way she breathes in, once, quite deliberately, before her knuckles meet the wood. She reads this paragraph slowly. Then she reads it again. This is one of her reading habits, the rereading of a paragraph that has done something to her, that has landed with a precision or a beauty that she wants to feel again, more slowly, more fully, now that the first reading has cleared the path. The first reading is for the meaning. The second reading is for the music. The paragraph is, she decides, very fine. She breathes in, quite deliberately, the way the young woman in the story breathes in, before she knocks a small, conscious act of solidarity with a fictional person who does not know she is being observed, who does not know that a woman in a flannel nightgown in an 1880s bedroom is breathing in sympathy with her across the boundary of the page. She reads on. The knock, the long wait, the sound of footsteps distant at first, then closer, the footsteps of someone descending stairs that are apparently inside the hillside, which should be impossible, but which the novel has been so carefully and gently preparing its reader for, that it does not feel impossible at all, merely extraordinary. The door opens, and what the young woman finds behind it is, she turns the page, the chapter ends, she looks at the last line of the chapter which has been arranged, with the deliberate craft of a writer who understood exactly what they were doing, to answer one question and open three more, and she makes a small, involuntary sound that is somewhere between delight and mild protest. Tomorrow evening, then, she has always found, despite herself, a particular pleasure in the deferred chapter, in the story that is not quite finished, that must be carried through the day and into the next evening, held in the mind like a pleasant obligation, returned to with the added warmth of anticipation. She has been thinking about this door in the hillside, in passing, for 2 days. Now she has something new to think about, something that will surface briefly at unexpected moments tomorrow while she is at the market, while she is pouring tea, a brief, pleasant flicker of narrative curiosity. There and then gone, the day made slightly richer by the pending story waiting at its end. She closes the book. She holds it in both hands for a moment as she held the diary, as she has held most of the objects of this evening with the simple, unhurried attention of someone who is in no hurry to move from one thing to the next. The cover of the novel is cloth green cloth, slightly worn at the corners, the title embossed in gold letters that catch the lamplight and gleam. She traces one letter with her finger, just once, a small, unconscious gesture of affection for the object, for what it contains. She leans forward and sets it on the bedside table carefully, precisely, in the space between the lamp and the candle, the book's spine facing her, so that she can read the title from where she lies, can confirm its presence and its proximity and its promise of tomorrow. She leans back. The pillow receives her fully. Rest now, my dearest friend. You are so close now, aren't you? So close to sleep, so warm and heavy and still. Just let her voice carry you the last little way. Just breathe and drift and let the lamplight grow softer and the room grow quieter and the night do its gentle ancient work. She lies still for a moment. The ceiling above her is plain white plaster, slightly yellowed near the centre where the lamp's warmth rises, crossed by a single thin crack that has been there since before she moved in, and that she has long since ceased to notice as a flaw and begun to perceive simply as part of the ceiling's face. She knows this ceiling the way she knows all the surfaces of this room, with the deep, specific familiarity of years. The crack runs from the northeast corner to a point above the wardrobe, and then stops, as though it thought better of proceeding. She has looked at this ceiling on thousands of nights. She looks at it now. The lamplight moves across it very gently, the flame's small natural breath translating into a slow, barely perceptible shift of light and shadow on the plaster, so subtle that it might be imagined, might be the eye finding movement where there is none. But she has watched this ceiling long enough to know that it is real, this slow, living shimmer of lamplit ceiling, and she has come to find it, on many evenings, as restful as anything else in the room. The moving ceiling, the breathing light. She exhales, a long, slow, complete exhale, the kind that empties the lungs thoroughly, that requires a moment of suspension at its end before the inhale comes. The body simply pausing at the bottom of the breath, neither in nor out, simply resting in the gap. Then the inhale, full and slow, then the exhale again. She is very nearly ready to pray. Prayer in this house, in this era, is as natural and unremarkable a part of the evening as the washing or the brushing, as much a feature of the bedtime routine as any physical act of preparation. Victorian religious life was complex and diverse and contained multitudes, but for a woman of her background and her gentle, undemonstrative faith, the nightly prayer is simply there. It has always been there, woven into the fabric of the evening's end. the way sleep itself is woven into the evening's end, inevitable, expected, something toward which the whole evening has been, in part, moving. It is not a performed prayer. There is no kneeling beside the bed tonight. She has done this on some evenings, more often in her younger years, but tonight the bed is warm, and she is tired in the best possible way, tired in the way of a body that has been given exactly what it needed, and she will pray as she often does now, lying down, the ceiling above her, the lamplight making its slow movement on the plaster. She folds her hands on her chest, not tightly loosely, her right hand resting over her left, her fingers relaxed, her arms soft at her sides. She can feel her own heartbeat through her palms, steady, quiet, faithful, the heart that has been beating all day without her noticing, without her attention or her gratitude, simply going about its essential work in the dark interior of her 60 or 70 times a minute, every minute, all day and all night, and every day and night of her life. She notices it now. She is grateful for it now. She closes her eyes. The prayer that she offers is simple, genuinely, entirely simple, without elaboration or formula. She is not a woman of long prayers or complex theology. Her faith lives in the same place her happiness lives in the ordinary, in the immediate, in the texture of the actual day. She thanks for the day. She names a few things, specifically the morning's market and the apples, the afternoon with her friend, the supper, the evening's quiet. She holds, briefly and gently, the people she loves, her husband, her mother aging in another city, her friend who laughed so easily this afternoon, the stranger who hurried past on the wet street below. She asks for rest, for the night to be quiet and restorative, for tomorrow to be met well, and then, and this is always last, always the closing. She offers something that is less a request than a kind of surrender, a placing of herself and everything she is, and everything she cannot control into hands larger and more patient than her own, not from fear, not from helplessness, from the deep practiced trust of someone who has discovered, over years of evenings like this one, that the laying down of the day's weight is easier when it is laid down somewhere, rather than simply dropped. She breathes. The prayer is done. She lies still with her eyes closed and the warmth of the bed around her, and the lamp burning low on the bedside table, and the candle beside it reaching the end of its wick. She can tell from the slight change in the light quality, through her closed lids, the candle throwing less now, the light a degree more amber, a degree more intimate. The room is very quiet. What strikes me about this prayer, this simple, private, utterly unwitnessed prayer of a woman lying in her warm bed in the 1880s, is how continuous it is with everything that has come before it in the evening. The prayer is not a separate act from the washing or the brushing or the writing in the diary. It is the same act, continued, the same quality of attention, the same deliberate, unhurried presence, the same fundamental gesture of the evening, which is this: the setting down of the day, the careful, grateful, complete relinquishing of everything the day has been. She has been doing this all evening. She has been setting the day down since she climbed the first stair. The prayer is simply the last and most complete version of a gesture she has been practicing for hours. The gradual, incremental release of everything held, until there is nothing left to hold, until the hands are open and the body is warm and the mind is as quiet as the room. She opens her eyes. The ceiling, the slow lamplight, the dark and the warmth and the barely audible sound of the city outside, reduced now to something so faint it is nearly a feeling rather than a sound, a vibration, a presence, the knowing that the world is out there and that it is manageable and that it will wait. She turns her head on the pillow. The lamp, the candle, burning very low now, the wax nearly gone, the flame sitting close to the last of it, burning with the particular brightness that candles produce in their final moments, as if making one last generous effort before they give out. She watches it for a moment. Just breathe, my friend. Just breathe and watch the candle with her. You're so close now, so close to sleep, so warm and safe and held. The night is all around you, and it is gentle, and it is yours. Just a little further, just one more small, beautiful thing, and then the dark, and then the rest. The flame makes a small movement, a barely perceptible lean, a response to some draft so subtle it cannot be felt, and then recovers, straightening, burning on. It casts its light across the room in a soft, warm arc touching the ceiling, the wall, the dark patchwork of the coverlet, the spine of the book on the bedside table. It touches her face. She can feel it, that faint warmth, close and gentle. The way candlelight feels on the face when you are lying near it in a quiet room. Not the warmth of heat, but the warmth of light itself, which is its own kind of warmth, which reaches something in the face that has nothing to do with temperature. She looks at the flame looks back, and then she reaches out her hand. Her hand moves slowly. There is no urgency in it. There has been no urgency in anything she has done this evening, but here, at the very end of it, the slowness has a different quality, a final, deliberate quality, the slowness of someone who understands that what they are about to do cannot be undone for many hours, who wants to be fully present for the last moment before the dark, who is in no hurry whatsoever to leave the lamplit world behind. Her arm extends across the coverlet. The coverlet is warm beneath her arm, that deep stored warmth of bed linen that has been heated by the warming pan, and then by her own body since she lay down. A warmth that is entirely her own now, entirely the warmth of this specific body, in this specific bed, on this specific evening, irreplaceable and unrepeatable and absolutely, quietly sufficient. Her fingers reach the base of the oil lamp. She does not extinguish the lamp first. She extinguishes the candle first. The candle is burning its last, the wax nearly spent, the flame sitting very low and very bright at the wick's final inch. She cups her hand around it, not yet touching it, and she can feel the warmth of it against her palm even at this distance, that small, intimate heat of a flame that has been burning for the better part of an hour, that has travelled with her through the evening, from dressing table to washstand to writing desk and finally here, to the bedside table, where it has burned patiently through the reading and the prayer and the long, quiet looking at the ceiling. She looks at it for a moment longer. The flame is beautiful. It is the most ordinary beautiful thing, a candle flame, a thing so common in this era that it is barely noticed, barely named, as unremarkable in an 1880s bedroom as a light switch in ours. And yet it is beautiful. It has always been beautiful. It will always be beautiful, for as long as there are flames and eyes to see them, because it does the thing that all beautiful things do, which is to be completely unhurriedly itself. The flame makes no claim to being more than a flame. It simply burns, and the burning is enough, and the enough is everything. She breathes in, she leans forward, and she blows. The breath that extinguishes the candle is very gentle, not the sharp, decisive puff you might use on a candle in the middle of a room, but the soft, almost tender breath of someone putting something to rest. The flame bends forward away from her, bends and stretches and elongates into a narrow, desperate point, and then it goes out. Not all at once. For one more moment there is the ember at the wick's tip, a small orange-red point of persistent heat, brighter for a second than the flame itself was, the wick glowing with its last gathered energy before the dark, and she watches it, and it watches her, and then it dims, and dims further, and goes dark. A thread of smoke rises from the wick, thin and pale and perfectly vertical in the still air of the room. It rises in a slow, unwavering line toward the ceiling, and then dissipates, spreads and thins and becomes invisible, becomes nothing, becomes the room's air. She watches it until it is gone, until there is no trace remaining of the candles burning except the faint smell of extinguished wick, that particular smell, slightly sweet, slightly smoky, that is one of the most specific smells in all of domestic life, the smell of the ending of small fires. The room is dimmer now. The oil lamp is doing all the work, and it is doing it well. The flame steady and warm, the light it casts broader and more even than the candle's was, filling the room in amber from the bedside table outward. The ceiling still carries its slow, breathing shimmer. The shadows in the room's corners are deeper now, the corner by the wardrobe, the corner by the window, but they are not dark in a way that troubles. They are dark in a way that is simply the room settling toward what it will be all night, the room practicing for the full dark that is coming. She turns her attention to the lamp. The oil lamp has a small brass wheel on its side, a knurled wheel, rough edged so that the fingers can turn it even with cold hands or sleepy hands. The roughness practical and considered. Turning it one way raises the wick. Turning it the other way lowers the wick. Lower the wick far enough and the flame dims to nothing, to a last pale blue flicker and then to dark. She finds the wheel with her fingers. She does not turn it yet. She lies there with her fingers resting on the wheel, and she looks at the lamp's flame through the glass chimney oval, steady, breathing its slow amber breath. And she lets herself look at it for a long moment without purpose or intention. Just looking. Just the eyes resting on the flame the way tired eyes rest on something warm and still. The flame receiving the attention without changing, without performing, without becoming anything other than what it is. A flame, burning. Enough. You are here, my friend. You are so completely here, warm and heavy and drifting. The day so far behind you now that it is barely a memory, barely a shape on the far edge of where you are. You're safe. You're warm. You're held by everything that holds you, the surface beneath you, the warmth around you, the dark that is coming, which is gentle and complete and entirely yours. Just breathe. Just be here for this last beautiful moment before the light goes out. She thinks, lying there with her fingers on the wheel, about the day. Not in the way she thought about it when she was writing in the diary, not with the focused, deliberate attention of someone making a record, finding the words, shaping the day into sentences. She thinks about it now, the way you think about something at the very edge of sleep, which is less like thinking and more like feeling the day passing through her like light through water, leaving its impression without demanding examination. The market in the cold morning, the apples, her friend's sitting room and the easy ranging conversation and coming away lighter. The supper and the drawing room and the tick of the clock and the moment she picked up her candle from the mantelpiece and turned toward the stairs. The stairs, the creak of the third step, the landing and the door, her room, all of it flowing through her now without weight or consequence. The day releasing itself from her the way a river releases a leaf, not letting go of it exactly, but simply carrying it past, and eventually beyond sight. The leaf drifting away on a current that is going somewhere quiet. She breathes, in and out. The city outside is deeply quiet now. Whatever hour it is late, she knows it is late. The clock in the hallway below, having struck 11 some time, before she lay down, the streets have given up the last of their business. The horse is long home. The hurrying woman has long since reached wherever she was hurrying to. The cat has chosen its next territory and moved on. The gas lamps burn in empty pools of amber light on wet cobblestones. Faithful and purposeless and beautiful, the city is asleep, and she is almost there. She turns the wheel, just slightly, just a single small turn, the knurled brass rough and precise against her fingertips, and the wick lowers and the flame responds immediately. It dims, it draws in slightly, it becomes a smaller, softer version of itself. The room dims with it. The amber pulls back. The shadows in the corners deepen another degree. She looks at the smaller flame. It is still beautiful. Smaller, but still burning, still steady, still doing its faithful work of turning fuel into light with the same wholehearted commitment it had when it was larger. The flame does not mourn its diminishment. The flame simply burns at whatever scale it is given to burn at, with whatever it has, without complaint and without regret. I find this, she thinks or feels, in the warm dim space where thinking and feeling are barely distinguishable anymore. I find this quietly instructive. She turns the wheel again. The flame dims further. It is very small now, a thumbnail of amber light, delicate and concentrated, the lamp barely maintaining it, the wick drawing up the last thin measure of oil that will keep the light alive for these last few moments. The room is much darker now. The ceiling is nearly lost. The familiar shapes of the furniture dressing table, wardrobe, washstand, chair, are suggestions of themselves. Outlines, presences felt more than seen. The warm, familiar dark of a known room. This is not the dark of unfamiliar places. not the unsettling dark of a strange room in a strange house, where the shapes are wrong and the sounds are unfamiliar, and the mind stays half alert, half ready. This is the opposite of that. This is the dark of a room she knows in every particular, whose every shape and sound and smell is as familiar as her own hands. The dark here is the same room, only quieter, only more itself. She is not afraid of this dark. She has never been afraid of this dark. It is the dark she was made for. The dark that ends every day and holds every night and from which every morning comes, faithful and unhurried, the way all reliable things come. She turns the wheel one last time. The flame shrinks to almost nothing, a pale blue thread, barely there, the wick making one last effort, and the light it gives is so small and so faint that it might be imagined, might be the eye creating brightness, where the eye most wants brightness, in the final moment before dark. And then the flame goes out, the dark comes, not suddenly, not with the shock of a switched light, but gradually, the way Victorian darkness always comes, filling the room from its corners inward, the shadows that have been waiting patiently in the room's edges moving now toward the centre, meeting in the middle, completing themselves. The room does not become a different room in the dark. It becomes a deeper version of itself, a quieter version, a version that asks nothing more from the evening because the evening is completely and finally done. She lies still. Her eyes are open for a moment in the new dark, open and adjusting, the darkness resolving slowly from absolute black into the many-toned dark of a room with curtained windows, where the faintest suggestion of gaslight from the street filters through the wool curtains and gives the dark a barely perceptible warmth. The ceiling comes back, not the lamplit ceiling, bright and amber, but a darker ceiling, a grey-white ceiling, present but not demanding. The crack runs from the northeast corner to above the wardrobe. She can still see it. She can always see it. She lets her eyes close. The pillow is under her head, full and soft, and her head rests in it with the particular heaviness of a head that has been held up all day and is now, finally, completely given over to gravity and to rest. The weight of her head against the pillow is one of the most profound physical reliefs available to a human being, and she feels it fully, the neck releasing its long day of careful maintenance, the muscles going quiet, the head sinking just fractionally deeper into the feathers. The coverlet is warm above her. The sheet is warm beneath her. She is contained in warmth on all sides, above, below, everywhere the bed touches her, and the warmth is her own warmth now, entirely. The warming pan's work completed and succeeded by the warmth of her own body, the body generating what it needs, the bed holding what the body generates, the whole system complete and self-sustaining and quietly perfect. Her breathing slows. It slows the way breathing slows when the body is finally, completely confident that it is safe, that no vigilance is required, that nothing is expected of it, that the long, careful work of the day is genuinely, irrevocably over. The breath does not deepen all at once. It deepens by degrees, each breath very slightly slower than the one before, very slightly fuller, the pauses at the top and bottom of each breath very slightly longer, the body moving through breath the way the evening has moved through time, unhurriedly, completely, with full attention to every moment. Outside, very far away, a church bell begins to count the hour. She hears it or half hears it, the sound reaching her through glass and wool and the just beginning drift of sleep, the bell's tone clean and round and carrying perfectly through the still October air. She counts with it, without meaning to, without deciding to, the numbers forming softly in whatever part of the mind is still available for counting. 1, 2, 3. She is barely here for the fourth stroke. The sound reaches her from a greater distance than the third did, not because the bell is softer, but because she is further, further from the room, further from the evening, further from the day that is now entirely behind her, the day that was good and full and carefully lived and is now completely done. 4, 5. She is not counting anymore. She is simply breathing. In and out. In and out. The dark room holds her. The warm bed holds her. The quiet city holds her. And the quiet night holds the city. and the quiet dark holds the night, and somewhere in all of that holding is a woman in a flannel nightgown, with a loose dark plait over one shoulder and her hands relaxed at her sides and her face soft and her breathing slow and her eyes closed and her whole body given over, completely and finally and trustingly, to sleep. She is not thinking. She is not feeling. Exactly. She is simply here, present in the way that sleeping people are present fully in their bodies, fully in their place, fully in the dark and the warmth and the breathing, and nowhere else at all. This is what moves me most. Not the hairpins or the rosewater or the diary or the candlelight, though all of those things move me, and I hope they have moved you. What moves me most is this moment. This woman in her dark and quiet room, in her warm bed, at the end of her ordinary and extraordinary day, simply breathing, simply resting, simply being the animal she is, the human she is, the person she is, in the dark and the warmth and the night. This is what it looks like when a life is being properly lived, not the grand moments, not the recorded moments. This, the breathing, the dark, the rest. The city outside is a whisper, and the whisper is a murmur, and the murmur is a feeling, and the feeling is the whole world, the whole enormous, complicated, beautiful, demanding world, and it is very far away. It cannot reach her now, and it cannot reach you either, my dear friend. You are here. You are warm. You are held. Just breathe. In and out. In and... She is asleep. The room is dark. The city is quiet. The coals in the grate have dimmed to the faintest suggestion of warmth, a breath of orange that will be ash by morning. The curtains hold the night outside, and inside, the only sound is her breathing slow and even, and completely unperformed. The breathing of a person who is not aware of being heard, which is the most honest breathing there is. We will leave her here. We will leave her in her warm bed with her plaited hair and her closed diary, and her book waiting on the bedside table, and we will sit for a moment in the quiet she has made, and we will think about what she has given us tonight. Because she has given us something. I am certain of it. I have been certain of it since the moment she set her foot on the first stair and the third step spoke. What strikes me most? Sitting here in the dark of her room, and I have been thinking about this for the entire length of the evening, turning it over quietly while she brushed her hair and wrote her diary and watched the candle burn. What strikes me most is the quality of attention she brought to everything. Not the actions themselves, the attention. Because the actions are simple. The actions are unremarkable. Unpinning hair and washing a face and warming a bed and writing a few lines in a diary, these are not the actions of a remarkable life. They are the actions of an ordinary one. And yet she performed each of them with a fullness of presence that transformed them into something more. Something that I can only describe, after spending this evening in her company, as sacred. Not sacred in any formal religious sense, though her prayer was there, and it was real, and it mattered. Sacred in the older, quieter sense of the word. The sense that means set apart, given full attention, treated as worthy of care. She treated her own evening as worthy of care. She treated the unpinning of 14 hairpins as worthy of care. The loosening of each eyelet of the corset as worthy of care. The 100 strokes of the brush, the cool rosewater against her face, the few lines in the diary, the single paragraph of the novel she read twice, because it was fine enough to deserve a second reading. All of it received the same quality of presence, the same unhurried, full-bodied attention. And I think this is what her evening teaches us. Not the specific rituals, though they are beautiful, and I hope they have settled into you as you listened. I hope the smell of rosewater is somewhere in your breathing now. I hope the warmth of a flannel nightgown is somewhere in your body, but the underlying principle, the thing that makes the rituals meaningful, the quality of presence that she brought to them, that transformed them from mere tasks into something approaching ceremony. The principle is this: the end of the day deserves the same attention as the beginning. We understand this, most of us, in theory. We know that rest is important. We have been told, by doctors and researchers and the accumulated wisdom of every culture that has ever thought carefully about human well-being, that sleep is not a luxury but a necessity, that the transition into sleep matters, that the body and the mind need to be gently, deliberately guided toward rest, rather than simply dropped into it. We know this, and yet, how many evenings do we arrive at bedtime having never quite left the day, having carried it with us through supper and into the later hours, the phone in our hands, the day's conversations still active in our minds, the tomorrow's concerns already forming, the sleep arrived at not through ceremony but through collapse, the body finally, exhaustedly overriding the mind's insistence on staying engaged. She would find this puzzling. Not judgmentally, she was not, I think, a judgmental woman, but genuinely puzzling. The idea of not attending to the transition, of not marking the movement from day to night with care and intention, of not giving the evening its due, because for her, the evening was due something. The evening was the day's completion, and completion deserved care. The day had asked things of her, her posture, her composure, her management, her presentation, her careful navigation of all the social and domestic demands that her world placed upon her. The day had taken things. And the evening was the time for returning to herself what the day had borrowed. The evening was the accounting, the balancing of the day's ledger, and she did this beautifully. I find myself moved, thinking about the corset. I keep returning to it, to that moment of the 9th eyelet, when the corset had loosened enough to allow the first full breath of the day, the ribcage expanding, the lungs filling completely, the long, grateful exhale. What moves me is not the physical relief, though the physical relief was real and significant. What moves me is the recognition, the moment of noticing what had been held and releasing it, the body's long patience finally rewarded, the constraint finally acknowledged and set aside. How many things do we carry through the day without noticing their weight? How many small compressions, small constraints, small constrictions of our own breathing, metaphorical and literal, do we simply absorb into the background of normal until we have stopped registering them as constraints at all? She noticed. She always noticed. Every evening, at the 9th eyelet, she noticed. And the noticing was itself a gift. This moves me too. The diary. The 3 lines about the apples. The sentence, I came away lighter than I went. The final line about rosewater and the fire at embers and the weight of her own hair. She was writing for no one but herself. There was no audience, no approval to be sought, no impression to be managed. In those pages, in that corner, in that candlelight, she was simply honest, simply attending to the actual truth of her own experience and finding language for it, and in finding language for it, making it real in a way that mattered to her. I think this practice, this quiet, private, audienceless accounting of the day, may be one of the most valuable things a human being can do, not because the writing itself changes anything, but because the act of finding words for your experience requires you to know what your experience actually was, requires you to sift through the day and locate the things that mattered, the things that moved you, the things that were beautiful or difficult or surprising or quietly luminous, requires you, in other words, to have paid attention. And paying attention to your own life is not a small thing. It may, in fact, be the whole thing. Rest here, my dear friend. Just rest. You don't need to hold on to any of this. It will be here when you wake, if you want it. Right now there is only the warmth and the dark and the breathing and the long, gentle night stretching out around you. You are safe. You are whole. You are exactly where you need to be. What else does she teach us? She teaches us, I think, about the body, about what it means to inhabit a body with care. The Victorian relationship with the physical self was complicated in ways we have already touched on: the corset, the constraint, the presentation, the discipline. And yet, and this is the thing I keep returning to, within those constraints, she was remarkably, continuously, tenderly present to her own physical experience. The scalp's relief when the pins came out, the ribcage's expansion when the corset loosened, the skin's gratitude for the cool rosewater cloth, the feet's quiet joy at bare contact with the rug, the eye's relief behind the wet flannel. She noticed all of it. She was not estranged from her own body, this woman. She was in conversation with it, continuously. Throughout the whole long evening, the body offered its small reports, and she received them with full attention, with something that I can only call tenderness, the same tender, unhurried attention she brought to everything else. This is, I think, a kind of wisdom, the wisdom of living inside your own skin with care, of treating the body's small communications, its tiredness, its hungers, its reliefs and discomforts, as worthy of the same careful hearing you might give a trusted friend. Not the anxious hypervigilance of someone listening for threats, but the relaxed, continuous, affectionate attention of someone who simply lives here, in this body, and finds it interesting company. She found it interesting company, and I think, if we can carry anything from her evening into our own lives, it might simply be this: the invitation to find our own bodies interesting company. The invitation to notice, tonight, what the day asked of us physically, what we have been holding, what might, with a little attention, be let go, the hairpins, whatever yours are, the corset, whatever yours is. She teaches us, finally, about time, about what it means to inhabit time slowly, to refuse the rush, to decline the tyranny of efficiency that tells us the only valuable time is productive time, that the movement from one task to the next should be as swift and frictionless as possible, that the space between things is wasted space. She did not believe this. Her evening was constructed entirely of the space between things, the pause on the landing, the long moment with the cloth pressed to her eyes, the 40-stroke pause in the middle of the 100, the deliberate, unnecessary second reading of a paragraph she had already understood, the watching of the candle's smoke rising after the flame went out. None of these were productive. None of them accomplished anything that could be measured or recorded or added to any ledger. They were simply present. They were simply the fullness of a person inhabiting their own experience without apology or haste. And they were, I would argue, among the most valuable things she did all evening, because they were the moments in which she was most completely herself, not the self that performs, not the self that manages, not the self that is observed and assessed and judged according to the standards of her particular time and place, but the self that simply is, the self that watches candle smoke and counts to 40 and reads a good sentence twice and sends small silent wishes to hurrying strangers in the street. That self, the real one. We all have this self. Every one of us, listening to this right now, has this self, the unperformed self, the private self, the self that lives in the small spaces of the day and the long quiet of the night, the self that is available, always, in the moment before sleep. She knew how to find it. She found it every evening systematically and lovingly, hairpin by hairpin, eyelet by eyelet, stroke by careful stroke. And then she lay down in the warm dark and gave it over to sleep, and sleep received it, as sleep always does, without judgment, without condition, with the complete and generous acceptance that is sleep's particular and extraordinary gift to the human body and the human mind. She did not know that we were watching. She did not know that 140 years later, people would lie in their own warm beds and listen to the story of her evening and find, in her ordinary rituals, something that spoke to them about their own, something that reminded them that rest is not escape, rest is arrival, that the end of the day is not the failure of the day, it is the day's completion, its most important chapter. She did not know any of this. She was simply a woman in a flannel nightgown in an 1880s bedroom, turning down her lamp, letting the dark come. And in doing so, she was doing one of the most human things there is. She was choosing rest. She was trusting the night. She was letting go. And now, my friend, now it is your turn. And so we leave her. We leave her in the dark of her room, in the warm of her bed, in the deep and complete quiet of an October night in the 1880s. The coals are ash. The lamps are out. The city beyond the curtains is a murmur so faint it is barely a sound at all, barely more than the memory of sound, the ghost of the day's noise dissolving into the long silence of the sleeping hours. She breathes, in and out, in and out, slow and even and entirely at peace. We tiptoe out, you and I. The way you tiptoe out of a room where someone is sleeping carefully, gratefully, aware that we have been permitted to witness something private and beautiful, and carrying that permission with us like a small and precious thing. Thank you for spending this evening with her. Thank you for climbing her stairs with her, for standing at her window with her, for feeling the release of those 14 pins and the miracle of the 9th eyelet. Thank you for sitting in the candlelight while she brushed her hair and counted, and for watching her write in her diary the 3 lines about the apples, those beautiful, unnecessary, entirely essential 3 lines. Thank you for being there when she turned the wheel of the lamp and the flame went out and the dark came in like warm water. You were good company tonight, and I genuinely quietly hope that something from her evening has found its way into yours, that her unhurriedness has slowed something in you, that her attention has invited your own attention to the small, warm, immediate things, the surface beneath you, the warmth around you, the simple, extraordinary fact of your own breathing, in and out, faithful and easy and completely sufficient. You don't need to do anything with this. You don't need to remember it or analyze it or carry it forward into tomorrow. Just let it rest in you. The way she rested, the way she always rested completely and trustingly. In the warm dark, this is what evenings are for. Not the rushing through, not the collapsing into, but this slow, deliberate, caring arrival at the end of the day, this gentle ceremony of return, this moment of standing at the window of your own life and watching the street grow quiet before you close the curtains and turn toward the warm room and the waiting bed. You have done enough today. You have been enough today. And now the day is over and the night is here, and it is gentle and it is long, and it belongs entirely, completely, unconditionally to you. Your shoulders can drop now, completely. Your jaw can soften. Your hands can open. There is nothing to hold. There is nothing to manage or solve or prepare for or protect against. The night knows what it is doing. It has been doing it since long before you were born, and it will go on doing it long after. And tonight, right now, it is doing it for you, turning the world slowly and quietly toward morning while you rest, keeping everything in its place, managing everything that does not need your attention, which is, at this hour, everything. Let the night manage it. Let the dark be kind to you, as it is kind as it has always been kind. Underneath the fear we sometimes bring to it, the dark is simply the world resting, the world breathing out, the world doing, at its own enormous scale, exactly what she did when she turned the wheel and let the flame go out, choosing rest, trusting the night, letting go. You are so warm right now, my friend. You are so safe. Whatever the day asked of you, whatever it took, whatever it left behind, is so far away now. It is on the other side of the dark, where the day always goes when it is finished, where everything finished goes, patient and harmless and nothing to do with tonight. Just breathe. Just be here. Just let the warmth hold you and the dark keep you, and the night do its ancient faithful work. She is sleeping, and you are nearly there. Nearly in the same quiet place she has already found that warm, wordless, completely restful country that sleep opens every night, that asks only one thing of you, which is the one thing that comes easiest now, the one thing your body has been moving towards since the moment you lay down. The letting go. It is happening already. I can hear it in your breathing, the way it has slowed, the way the pauses have lengthened, the way the breath has found its own deep and easy rhythm, that has nothing to do with effort and everything to do with trust. Trust it. Trust the breath. Trust the dark. Trust the night, which has been keeping the world safe for sleeping people since the very beginning of the world, which knows exactly what it is doing, which has you right now, completely, and with great gentleness in its care. Good night, my friend. Sleep well. Sleep long and deep and peacefully. And when you wake, whenever you wake, at whatever hour the morning finds you, I hope you find the day a little softer than you expected. I hope you find in it somewhere the Victorian woman's particular gift, the ability to look at something ordinary and find it quietly extraordinary. The apples at the market, the light on the water in the basin, the weight of your own hair, the single sentence that says exactly what you mean. I hope you find all of it, It is there. I promise you, it is always there. The beauty in the ordinary, the warmth in the familiar, the deep and sustaining pleasure of a day lived with full attention and ended with full care. It has always been there. She knew it. And now, I think, so do you. Sleep. Until next time, this has been Sleepy History with Alan. Good night.